Hello. Hey, hi, hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mildra, your gaming monk for the evening. And it has been several months since we've done this sort of thing. But new place, new attitude, new heads to kick in. And as always, I'm still your gaming monk. But I'm not alone. I have with me the master of the flat pack himself, Flat Master.
Hey guys and girls.
And in abeyance, because where the fuck is he? Was going to be the living stack of comics Doku, and going to be arriving a little later today because of scheduling problems. Is Mr. Nameless One himself. Now, before we get into the good shit and the shit. I have to once again return my weekly tradition of the Geek of the Week. This time, the Geek of the Week award goes to Drake McWhorter, who apparently was a former guy who worked with Matt Pat. So, this is your target, folks. Aim well. Who remarked, quote, "Hey, do you think that comics that stars characters other than straight white dudes are fine? Well, that means you're a retarded, triggered SJW libtard snowflake cuck. Show your love with an official comic cuck shirt available at merch.comicdrake.com." So he's taking the Maddox route. By the way, just so I can get this out of the way, hooray! Maddox lost. Dick is the winner. Anyway. But yeah, and when I saw that earlier this week, I had to put up the whole thing of cult members will always strawman, and some people may argue that I'm being a bit harsh by comparing social justice warriors to a cult. But if the boot fits, thou must wear it. Because they check all the fucking boxes, and I have offered multiple chances to not check all the boxes, and they still check all the fucking boxes.
Well, it's the reason why we say that the SJWs have drunk the Kool-Aid, because it's so apt for yeah, they are a cult, aren't they? They exhibit all of the telltale symptoms.
Mm-hmm. The cult is always right. You are always wrong. And in this case, intentionally trying to discredit critics. But that's not the reason. The reason why this annoyed me was the fact that he actually thought he was being funny. Like, I know it's in to make Seinfeld memes, but there is one line from Seinfeld that I keep coming back to with these sort of things. And I've used this line in other streams and other shows and the like, but I feel it's appropriate here. And this offends you as a Jewish person? No, it offends me as a comedian. is generally my take on this sort of things, because this isn't a joke. There's no exaggeration. This is somebody who's pretending to who's basically pulling the whole, oh, we'll just own it and that'll make it all the better, or we'll strawman it and that'll make it all the better. No. You still look like a fucking clown. The only thing that you're missing is soy face. You've got the beard for it.
Soy face. The shark mouth.
Yeah.
I think
You do realize that somebody's going to screen cap that one shot of you and use that to say confirmed soy face.
God. Oh, dear.
But yeah, so for that, you are the Geek of the Week. Congratulations. Now then, I've got a bit of news, some good, some concerning, and some bad. Now, the first bit of good news is that, and I brought this. This is a little bit old, but I feel it's worth bringing up now. White Wolf is apparently back. Initially, I thought that White Wolf was basically being supplanted by Onyx Path Publishing, who's drank the Kool-Aid several times over. We'll hopefully get to that later down the line. because it seemed that they were handling the publishing of World of Darkness and Exalted. In the case of Exalted, which for the record is one of my favorite tabletop RPGs of all time, have kind of drunk the Kool-Aid and seriously dropped the ball when they said that Exalted is just wuxia and mythology, which it certainly can be, but that's selling it way, way short. But it seems that White Wolf is trying to make a new World of Darkness setup, starting with a new Vampire the Masquerade and a new Werewolf, and they're teaming up with a French-based Mephidius to actually, I can't remember if it was actually no, they're a UK company, and to handle the game. Now, Mephidius is most known recently for stuff like Mutant Chronicles 3rd Edition, turning Corvus Belle's Infinity into a pretty decent game, and also they're responsible for the most recent Conan RPG, which
Conan Exiles, isn't it?
No, Exiles is done by Funcom. I'm talking about a tabletop RPG, Conan Adventures in the Edge of the Wild. Oh wait a minute, I'm getting that mixed up. This is the problem when you've got like 2,000 different RPG names in the back burner. You end up getting some of the names mixed up. But they've been handling Conan. And hello there, Anita. How you doing? And now fortunately it doesn't seem that they're using their 2D20 system for this new vampire, because the playtest version is out. I do have the PDFs for that. I might try and not do a playtest of that, because my last playtest of a system that wasn't out yet didn't go so well. But I might give it a once through, since I'm already going to be covering another playtest come August with Pathfinder's 2nd edition. But this is interesting, because if Mephidius is handling things, then there's the possibility that we might not have to deal with World of Darkness Social Justice Edition anymore. The news that's a bit concerning is in regard to the board game giant Asmodee, who's bought up a lot of different companies over the last year. Last year or so. So here it goes. This is coming from Reuters. Asmodee Group hired a group of investment bankers to run a sale process. Validation of the company is reported at over 1.5 billion euros, or about 1.7 billion US. Any sale would have potential wide-reaching implications for the industry, as Asmodee has been on an acquisition spree over the past few years, purchasing board, card, and role-playing companies such as Fantasy Flight Games, Z-Man, Days of Wonder, Catan Studio, Plaid Hat Games, and a bunch of others. I actually got pissed about the Fantasy Flight Games acquisition because it meant 2 really good RPGs from FFG got shit canned in the process. The 40K RPG, or RPGs technically, and the really good Anima RPG, which is still being published in Spain, but the localization was handled by Fantasy Flight. Anyway, so far these companies have been mostly left to their own devices when it comes to management and creative choices, but an ownership change may alter that arrangement. In addition, with news of multiple retail chains entering bankruptcy or outright closing, such as Toys R Us, a sale may put the company at risk of a leveraged buyout, where financial firms take out loans to purchase a company, then transfer the debt incurred to the company they just purchased for the company to pay off. Reuters did not identify their sources because the deliberations are confidential, and neither Eurazeo, the current owner of Asmodee Group, nor Asmodee themselves have commented. What's interesting about this sort of thing is that Asmodee leaves a lot of the companies up to their own devices. And I would like to hope that that maintains the case after this deal goes down, because The last thing I want is Asmodee's telling Fantasy Flight Games or something like that, no, you need to work on more board games. Fuck your Edge of the Empire shit. Work on more board games with Star Wars. And the sad thing is, Fantasy Flight Games is the only people who has the Star Wars license that actually seems to give a damn. Like, the movies, shit. The video game end of things, shit and shit and shit. The tabletop games, well, the RPG has been doing pretty well. Imperial Assault, Armada, and X-Wing all are decent miniatures games that fill different niches.
Mm-hmm.
And Destiny is a very good dice game. No, not that Destiny, Star Wars Destiny. And the funny thing is, most of them cover the original trilogy. Not many. There hasn't been much delving into the new stuff. Probably a reason for that. Like, there's been Fantasy Flight Games has not even touched The Last Jedi. The only thing from the new trilogy that they've done was one module for The Force Awakens. That was a tie-in to the recent Force and Destiny RPG that they made. That was about Force users. They have They now have, and I reviewed them a while back, but they now have 3 Star Wars RPGs. And hey, Aaron.
Hey, what's up, man?
What's up? Better late than never. We're just missing the stack of comic books.
Yeah, it's turned. Yeah, sorry for the delay. My damn job. Ugh. I hate working Sundays.
How's it going, Aaron? You all right?
I'm doing all right. Of course, it's a little hot in here, but luckily I don't have the damn air on. So what did I miss?
Just a bit of entry stuff. Me going over the Geek of the Week and talking over getting the possibility of a new Vampire the Masquerade from a Mophidius. So it's probably not going to be Kool-Aid induced. And this whole deal with Asmodee possibly looking for a buyer.
Yeah, I don't. To be honest, I really don't follow Vampire that much, but that's pretty interesting. Hopefully the Soy Syndicate doesn't come after. This isn't sunk their teeth into that franchise.
Well, the people who are publishing the reprint of Old and New World of Darkness certainly part of the Soy Syndicate, but they've got bigger problems than just virtue signaling. We'll hopefully get to that later. And besides, Mophidius is the current publisher for the most recent Conan RPG. And do you really think anybody who's guzzling down the soy is going to handle Conan?
Oh no! Unless they turn Conan into like some sort of gave him a freaking soy beard, prom glasses, and all of a sudden he's like posing with a damn Nintendo Switch.
Which, but by the way, Funcom, find a way to get Exiles onto the Switch. You'll make bank, trust me.
And aside from their soy problem, the Nintendo Switch I think is doing pretty well anyway. I think it's given Sony some problems, and I think Microsoft
as well because Microsoft
screwed.
They I'm gonna see. This is gonna be the worst impression you're gonna hear all week, but Microsoft screwed Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that is the worst Vince McMahon impression I will ever do.
Yeah, Microsoft's still paying for the sins of Don Matrick, and they've been doing that ever since that console launched. If Microsoft has any freaking guts, they need to go in E3. I basically said it in like my little report card that I had on E3. I posted on Twitter that Microsoft either needs to go big with the exclusives or just get out.
Well, I don't know why they cancelled that. Do you remember that game that
they've had several promising exclusives that got shit canned or came out to a whimper.
Like Platinum Studios that made
Scalebound.
No, Scalebound. That's it. That's what was the name.
From what I was able to dig up on that, Scalebound was pretty close to going gold. Before they pulled the plug, and Kamiya was not happy. But then again, Kamiya is he's a grumpy asshole by his own admission, but he's an honest grumpy asshole. And I get the feeling he probably has Don Matrick blocked.
I wouldn't blame him. That guy is a fucking cancer.
Because seriously, Scalebound could have been one of those things where you could have said, okay, yeah, this is a good reason to plop down money for an Xbox One.
Yeah,
but there was that. There was the one that really pissed me off was the whole thing with Phantom Dust, because I loved Phantom Dust on the original Xbox. It wasn't the best, but it was a little game that could. And then they brought it back and tried to do some microtransaction bullshit with that PC release.
They went EA.
Yeah.
You never go full EA.
Exactly.
You just went full EA.
Yeah.
Never go full EA.
Their conference in E3, it's gonna be a complete shit show.
Well, maybe they'll finally get Crackdown. You know, the thing that they've
Crackdown 3.
Yeah, Crackdown 3. It's the Duke Nukem Forever of Microsoft right now.
No, I don't even have anything against Crackdown. I fucking loved Crackdown 1 and 2, but seriously, they've been waiting so fucking long, and that thing has been delayed so many fucking times.
I feel for the Xbox One owners. The thing is, instead of getting Crackdown, every freaking year they're getting hardware upgrades and hardware upgrades and hardware upgrades. I've been complaining about this for the past 3 years now. It's like, this is a Sisyphean task. You're not gonna out hardware the PC.
Well, that and they thought they'd have the brilliant thing with that modular console that I ripped into last month.
Oh God.
Which it's a controller that can work well with people who have physical disabilities. Good job.
Yeah, and they're wondering why their market share or with the they're losing market share to the damn PC.
Well, that's why they did that whole thing of the Play Anywhere initiative, which was a terrible idea.
Nope. Nintendo beat you to that one.
Well, the idea of having it that all of your releases are going to be on PC, you're basically putting the question in the consumer's mind. Well, if I can get the same experience with this on a PC, why do I need an Xbox?
Yeah, why do I need an Xbox? Why do I need a PlayStation? Shit. At least for the Nintendo, they always have first-party exclusives. Shit. And and that's why Nintendo's doing so well, because their first-party exclusives are awesome.
Well, that and they learned their lesson that they should have learned a generation ago, and are being a lot more open with the dev kit.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing right there.
That's the thing that's really helped. They're not being as closed-minded about their tech.
Yeah.
There's also the fact that they've dialed back on the whole motion control thing, because I think they learned that ship has sailed. I think the only thing motion control related that I have for the Switch is arms. That's it.
Yeah, because that's the problem with Nintendo. They're relying on gimmicks now. It's the same. It's now it's filtered down to the other consoles. Even the PC has committed those sins with VR. But I think what's going to happen is Nintendo's probably going to be the last console standing, as I've been saying for the past 2 years. I'm praying to God that Sega releasing a Retro Genesis could be a sign they're thinking about getting back into the console market.
I'd like to hope so. Although if they made a Shenmue game as an exclusive for that, they would pretty much run off with the bank.
Yeah, that and they could revive a lot of great IPs. I mean, they need to stop it with the gimmicks with Sonic and go back to what worked. I mean, Sonic Mania worked.
Just hire Stealth as a permanent Sonic employee, and you'll be good for years.
Yeah. You have that. There's a lot of great IPs they can revive. Phantasy Star, one of the most underrated RPG series of all time.
Yeah, they've done that online, but doing that online and doing that in the RPG sense is not exactly the same.
Yeah, they need to go back. They need to go back to what worked. I mean, they haven't released a single player game since Final Fantasy Star 4, and that was what 28 years ago. No, not 28, 24. Sorry. It's like a quarter of a century.
Except for the semi offline things with the Phantasy Star Universe, but we don't talk about that.
Yeah, it's more like okay, that did exist. It's retcon. It's like what's going to be with the Disney era Star Wars in about 10 to 15 years.
Well, like I said, and Bayonetta is saying Sega needs to release a new Rise Star. As tempting as that would be, I don't see that happening simply because the whole thing with Yooka-Laylee may have caused some long-term damage.
Oh yeah.
Alien Soldier, I would be okay with that if you brought in like Shinji Mikami to do it, or if you did some collaboration with id.
Yeah. But you know what franchise I really want to see back if Sega decides to restart their console division? Streets of Rage.
Yes, I've been playing the Vintage Collection with my wife recently, and it's still really. It's still so fun and just full of replayability. You play as all the different characters.
Yeah, 20 years from now, it still stands out because of the awesome soundtrack, the great gameplay. Yes. I think it was better than the Final Fight series. Now, imagine Sega doing Streets of Rage again. You remember the Warriors that Rockstar released like back in 2005?
Yeah,
I never played that, but I do remember.
I remember that because, well, first off, the Warriors is one of my favorite films, to the point that, and this is going to be a bit of a fail for me. Every time I see Warriors trending on Twitter, I immediately think somebody's talking about the movie, and then I get disappointed. It's like, oh, it's NBA.
Golden State. Freaking NBA.
to the point where to creep out one of my friends on Halloween night, I grabbed a few Mexican Coke bottles and did the whole thing. Warriors,
come out to play. Yeah, I used to do that with Coke cans back when I was in a freshman year of high school.
Yeah, but there's a spot in my old neighborhood that had the Coke and glass bottles still. But it was, looking in hindsight, the fact that game was released by Rockstar of all people was one. It was understandable to an extent, especially since Rockstar is not very good at mission design. Yeah. I know some people are going to get pissed off at that, but it's true.
Yeah, but like I said, they have some few weak spots. But like I said, I thought the Warriors was a great game.
Yeah,
because I wished that could have been a start of a revival of the beat 'em up job, but unfortunately that didn't come to pass, sadly, because I thought that would have been the next big evolution. Now, if Sega goes this route with a new Streets of Rage title, oh, imagine the possibilities. And they have to bring back Yuzo Koshiro.
If they can't do that, then I'd say just do some collaboration with ArcSys, because that worked out pretty well for Hardcore Uprising.
Yeah, that and
they had that.
Oh, I just remembered. Maybe, or if they can't do Yuzo, you know what they could do? They could find some synthwave artists and put a soundtrack to that one.
Yeah, or or whoever was working on Double Dragon Neon, because that was pretty good. But Daisuke Ishiwatari, I feel needs more work when it comes to his compositions. Like he is fucking awesome with what he does. But given the rise in popularity with Fire Emblem, it might be a good time to get some new stuff with Shining Force in a proper strategy RPG setup. Yeah. The Shining Force has been around, but it's like they've gone into this experimental hole.
Sorry to interrupt again. Fire Emblem, that's under Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
Oh God, and that they could do Shining Force as well, because, like I said, it won't have the Nintendo Treehouse stench to it.
Well, Treehouse has effectively gotten the boot after that incident, and which is the reason why with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 you had everybody doing the worst British accent. And let's see, a new Shinobi game would be fantastic. Have the Ninja Gaiden people work on it. Well, it may as well because Itagaki's doing bugger all, and Team Ninja has basically been doing helper work. Most recently with Dissidia NT, which or Dissidia Arcade in Japan, they did very good on. But I do think that we need that kind of difficulty with that level of speed. And Neo was close, but not quite. It was basically in the same speed ranking as Bloodborne. Don't get me wrong, I'm not disparaging Bloodborne. Fucking love it. But there's something to be said about that kind of speed. And I do think that since Itagaki is nowhere near or anywhere around, you're not going to have the problem anymore that you had with vanilla Ninja Gaiden 2, because fuck that. Gatling rocket launcher ninjas. What the fuck?
Oh my god.
Oh, the cyborg ninjas as well.
I'm talking about the ones that will. Now, for Ninja Gaiden 2, are you playing the PS3 version or the 360 version? Flat.
I've got the 360 version.
Okay, so you've got to deal with the real shit.
Yeah.
But
honestly, that game was.
Well, first off, there was the bullshit thing with that fire armadillo, where the only way to survive that is to hold block and stand slightly in front of it in order to make a cutscene play.
Oh my god! So this is basically some Shinobi PS2 shit here, right? Even on the easiest difficulty with Ninja Gaiden 2, it's the wrong kind of hard. Ninja Gaiden 2 on the 360 is the wrong kind of hard. Because everybody likes to spam ranged attacks, and they like to use throw moves without any wind up.
Yeah, the enemies all have really cheap shots or cheap combos that really smack a lot of damage. And I've seen people try and use the get good excuse, except I put it in the same category as I did Halo 2's legendary campaign difficulty. You remember those fucking jackal snipers? And hey, Doku's finally shown up.
Yeah, I just got home, man. Sorry for being late.
No worries, better late than never. Besides, first casualty is always the battle plan. I was going over the news, and then we just kind of descended into madness.
Oh, that's always fun.
Talked about getting a new Vampire the Masquerade. Talked about Asmodee looking for a buyer, and the third bit of news that I did have to cover it, and this is the one that got me so pissed off that I was actually on the same page with Jeremy of all people. Anita showing up as a guest of honor.
Oh my word!
At Gen Con.
Yeah,
this is why. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. This is why I avoid freaking conventions now. Because now most of these places, they're virtue signaling up a storm.
Yeah,
I go to the smaller conventions, and I'm still going to MetroCon next month because I know I'm gonna have some fun there, and Scott McNeil's gonna be there, which I have heard stories about Scott McNeil, and he is interesting.
You know, we talked about this on Stream of Corruption, but I'll say it here as well because it's worth saying. I swear, Anita Sarkeesian going to fucking Gen Con. I swear to fucking God, if she comes out with a tropes of women or what the fuck ever in RPG and tabletop gaming, I am going to lose my shit.
What does she have to...
Actually, here's the thing, and go ahead, because I don't want to go ahead.
No,
you know what's gonna make me lose? You know what's gonna make me lose my shit? Is when she's probably gonna talk about the if she gives some sort of spiel about the monk contributing to Orientalism or the
cultural appropriation
is the most feminist character class. or
God.
that she's been playing D&D for a long time, I am going to start flipping tables.
Yeah.
She'll fucking
Not this
claim
one
that
though,
too.
because I paid too much money for this, and I do not feel like putting it back together.
Well, as you know, I think this has been building up in the tabletop gaming sector for quite a while.
Yeah, this has been building up for a long
Yeah,
time.
the whole Whiners of the Coast bullshit with they got pedophiles kicking out Jeremy because he freaking went hard on a fucking thought.
Aaron, did you happen to see the video that Alpha Investments did of that? I'm not sure if this was a misprint or what happened, but there was this really badly printed version of D&D 5th Edition's Player's Handbook.
I've heard about. I think I might have heard about. Is this the one where they decided to have all these gender neutral characters now?
They've been.
Oh no, wait. Is this the thing about the retarded character?
No. First off, a character being retarded I am rendered numb to that kind of thing because I've had to read through Fatal with its actual retard strength. The funny thing is, you think I'm fucking kidding. I am not.
I know you're not.
I know you ain't.
That's why it's funny.
I just think some people are just willing to go down that route.
Fatal is a legend when it comes to bad tabletop RPGs. You are not prepared for this.
Well, good thing I'd never heard of those guys.
The thing that makes me wonder, though, is what does Anita Sarkeesian have to offer to tabletop RPGs?
Only two things. One, she did one module that was absolute shit for House on Haunted Hill, which, for the record, for me personally, I remember trying to run House at Haunted Hill at an LGS a few times. It basically comes off as a poor man's Arkham Horror.
So it's a rip-off campaign. Lovely.
No. I'm saying House on Haunted Hill is just a poor man's version of what Arkham Horror does, except what Tannhauser does. Except they do not hold back with the creepy, and there's the fact that that you can have a very strong risk of getting fucked up. I'm not trying to talk about difficulty one-handed or some shit like that. What I'm saying is that it felt way too much like it was just trying to be a horror version of Clue.
Freaking Cthulhu did it with the candlestick over at the Dead Conservatory.
Yeah.
But her being advised, this feels like it's a last ditch, the last dying breath of her relevancy, and also
she's
virtue signaling from
she's been trying to do this transferring over into. Well, the problem is for starters, anytime that she tries to venture into a separate thing, like when she tried to do the freak show or when she tried to do the live streams, they always end up going up in flames or just going up with a poof.
Yeah, it turns into a freaking lolcow. She becomes a freaking lolcow instantly. Now, the thing with the tabletop situation, why Gen Con's rolling out the goddamn red carpet, is they want to basically what they call plant their little resistance flag into the fucking industry. Mm. But, I see this as a bad thing and a good thing. Bad, it of course emboldens the soy syndicate and the cat lady cabal, etc. And it turns the tabletop gaming industry into a bigger dumpster fire.
Although you want to know what my prediction on this sort of thing is going to end up happening, is that for the people who their only tabletop experience is anything that comes out of Wizards of the Coast that isn't Axis and Allies, because Axis and Allies is where your OCD goes to die with its 600 fucking pieces. And that's not even the worst. That's not even the worst. That's not even the worst offender I've seen. The worst offender was this game from the 70s called The Race for South Africa, with a with a board map that is larger than a human child.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
Oh, so it's basically like a big version of what's that thing that came out with the weapons and warriors and shit.
Yeah, I'll try it. I'll try and put in a there's a link to the game on Board Game Geek, and it shouldn't come as no surprise that when people started messing around with computers, one of the first things that somebody tried to do was try and make a digital version of that game, simply because then all the shit could be easily handled.
Yeah, I'm definitely checking this out after. Well, I got to do some work though, but I am definitely checking that out when I get time, because that seems like sort of interesting. So, I mean, let me guess, race for South Africa. Sounds like what's the whole plan? Malema takes over the entire Earth country, and now you gotta throw him off.
I take it back. I don't think it was. I can't remember. I think it was actually North Africa. It was basically supposed to be. It was one of those early '70s era kind of war games that's trying to replicate World War II or Antiquity. And,
North Africa. North
Africa.
That makes sense now.
Yeah, and that's why you have this huge map. And I know it was bigger than a kid because somebody took a picture where they had their kid who was like 5 years old laying next to the map, and the map was taller than the kid. You just put in a map of the game. Child added for effect.
Scale reference.
Good lord.
Oh my God.
But I think somebody said that a full game would take like 2 years to finish.
Oh my! So basically, Civilization, if it was made in real as a board game.
Well, funny you mentioned that. Civilization was originally a board game. Yeah. Although the original board game of Civilization and the game that you know have nothing in common. It's just that it kind of went into that direction because Sid Meier was going to be making that game, and he wanted to call it Civilization, but that name was taken by Avalon Hill. So he puts in his name, Sid Meier's Civilization, to sort of get around the copyright. Well, that and he didn't want to rock the boat. And although a few years later we would have a Ghostbusters incident where they would come out with Advanced Civilization, in kind of the same way that there's a difference, that there's a reason why the Ghostbusters cartoon had to call itself The Real Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Somebody else beat him to it. And I saw that Funimation. That
Filmation.
The Filmation version of Ghostbusters when I was a kid. Yeah, I remember that. It was like one of those mediocre 1980s era cartoons.
Well, Filmation by the 80s was a shadow of their former self. I mean, this was Filmation and Hanna-Barbera in the 70s was absolutely dominant, but by the 80s, not so much. Mostly because their way of dominating was flood everything. Problem is, when you flood everything, stuff gets shit.
Oversaturate the market, you're going to end up with mediocre product at best.
Well, that's why Hanna-Barbera did the Tide gimmick. It was a way to cut costs, so they didn't have to animate a neck and animate the rest of the body. They could just animate the head. Because animation is a lot more expensive than people think.
Yeah.
But as far as this whole what I do imagine happening, and I almost want to get a ticket to Indiana so I can ask her this question and record it so I can see her make a fool out of herself.
I don't know, man. She might get her soy thugs to kick you out of Gen Con. Be careful.
And Polygon print an article about you. Look at this garbage human.
Look at this garbage human. He's probably one of those. He probably came in with had a MAGA hat under that hood of his.
and I dare them to do it, because then the next thing I could just go, yeah, it's real nice to see how progressive you are by throwing out a black guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would be the question that you'd ask her?
I would ask her, name three RPGs that you have played that are not D&D.
Yeah, that's gonna
start out.
Yeah,
remember
cue the Jeopardy cue the Jeopardy think music.
Yeah, because remember what happened with when she was on the Colbert Report before Colbert decided to start sucking.
Yes,
and basically turned his show into the bitch about Trump hour.
The 60 minutes of hate, basically.
Which I don't really give a shit for anti. It's more of do something else.
Exactly.
It's like I tell all those soy boys who keep railing about who keep bringing up Harry Potter references. Read something else. There's a fucking library 3 blocks from my house.
Oh, Harry Potter would let the Syrian refugees in. Harry Potter would be supportive.
The irony of that fact is J.K. Rowling said something similar on Twitter, and when she was asked to house some refugees in one of her multiple mansions, she just stopped responding.
Oops.
People also pointed out the fact that Hogwarts is just like the proposed wall between Mexico and the US, is that Hogwarts doesn't allow Muggles in, does it?
Wait, could we consider Hogwarts an ethno-state if wizards were considered a race?
Pretty much.
Yeah, how the Hogwarts is an alt-right recruitment.
Well, we already have proof that they're perfectly that the pod people are perfectly fine with that sort of state. I mean, after all, you saw how they lapped up Black Panther.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they love Wakanda, which is essentially an alt-right wet dream.
Yeah.
To the point where I think actual alt-righters were congratulating it.
Yeah.
I've heard a few people who are alt-right who are like, I actually love the Black Panther movie, and this is why. It's like, here we go.
Yeah. You know what's funny is there was a guy on YouTube that came out with a video that was released around the time that Black Panther came out. He basically came talking about oh, you're not just here because you're supporting black superheroes. So, and basically he gave out an example called, you've heard of Static Shock, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I remember reading at least one issue of the original Milestone run, although I wouldn't recommend it. It's very different.
Yeah. So the guy's like saying, so this guy's going there. So if these people ain't out here, when I call out superhero Static Shock, and he say if he doesn't hear the whoop whoop, he's gonna slap everybody in the freaking theater. Yeah. That was a freaking That's why I didn't go see Black Panther, because I personally had a feeling it was another one of those mediocre Marvel movies, and that's the problem. It's become, most of the Marvel movies, they're not bad. It's just they become rote.
Well, Black Panther was. Oh, sorry. I was about to say Black Panther was written from a African American perspective rather than from an African.
That whole perspective thing. I always hate that kind of argument, because it implies an intrinsicness to what is otherwise is a neutral work. That somehow a work is magically different, and I'm using the term magic in a half hyperbolic sense here.
Yeah.
That it's somehow different by magic simply because of the ethnicity of the person who's writing it. And to illustrate why this annoys me so much, let me tell you a little story. So, a few decades ago, cast your mind to the early 90s. Warner Brothers has finally gotten a director for the Malcolm X biopic that they've had in development hell for several years. The director's name was Norman Jewison.
Okay.
Now, this was a controversial move, even though Norman Jewison was the guy who directed the movie and later show In the Heat of the Night, which is really good.
Oh yeah.
He was also the director of Rollerball, had written multiple pieces on racial tension, and had experienced racial tension of his own, being a Jewish man growing up in French Canada.
Oh.
And because well, technically he wasn't Jewish, but people assumed that because of his name, even though he wasn't. But he was a English speaker in French Canada, which has its own issues. But no, it was the problem was that he was white. They ignored everything else that he'd done and focused just on that. And to be fair, Jewison outright said that he never felt that he got it quite right during his time on it. And Spike Lee's version was pretty good because this was before Spike Lee decided I'm going to get into a kissing contest with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, Spike Lee. That's the thing. Spike Lee. I still think he's a great director. It's just now it's like like most of Hollywood now. Just like
after Oldboy, I'm not entirely sure because that was a massive disappointment.
Yeah.
Oh, the US remake of Oldboy?
Yeah.
Because I've not seen that. Is that with Josh Brolin, wasn't it?
Yeah, and here's the thing. I had high hopes because Lee, up to that point, was one of those last auteur kind of directors where when you're watching something that's got his fingerprints on it because he has a certain style. Like how Tarantino has a certain style, or Scorsese has a certain style.
Yeah, all of Spike Lee's older stuff from the beginning all the way up to, I would say, even Inside Man was pretty freaking good. But the problem here is, I think what's biggest drawback is the guy. He's a huge race baiter, like big time SJW. Let's just say he ain't gonna be dining with the Hoteps anytime soon.
No, but he'll probably be dining with. He'll probably give Tariq Nasheed a leading role.
or Sean King.
Yeah.
Produced by Sean King, written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and starring Tariq Nasheed.
I would go see that just to laugh at it.
Yeah.
So what is the US remake of Oldboy in comparison to the Korean one then? What are the differences like?
Well, the big the problem that I had with it personally was that it played everything far, far too safe. Like I couldn't if I didn't know any better, I would have assumed that Brett Ratner directed this because there's nothing in here that has Spike Lee's style, and more importantly, I know that everybody loves the hammer scene, and if you don't know what that is, go look it up.
Oh, I see.
Was it all done in a single take? Wasn't it that scene?
I don't know if it was done in a single take, but it was actually. I think it might have been, but it was. But what's more impressive is how it was shot. With just that whole single line kind of thing.
Yeah.
I put it right up there with the one take fight scene from The Protector, which every time I see that I feel like busting out my old copy of Rise to Honor, which is a really good game on the PS2.
Oh, yeah. Very underrated.
Oh, that was that Jet Li game I remember you telling me about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the problem is the main thing that they really changed is the fact that instead of being set in Korea, it's being set in the Big Easy, which on paper that doesn't sound like a bad idea. I mean, the Big Easy
better than sitting in like L.A. or fucking New York where they usually like to shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a place like the Big Easy which has a cultural identity all its own, that could work pretty well. Except the problem when you do that and at the same time play things straight is that certain things don't mesh. Like, do you recall the scene in the original, where he was able to pinpoint where a ramen shop by taste? They tried to do that exact same thing in the US version, except the problem is in something like Korea, you could probably do that because everybody's their own kind of chef, and has their own kind of style. In a place like that where you could easily get top ramen, in a place like Louisiana where you could easily get top ramen if you wanted to, not so much. You would have been if they had switched out ramen for crawdads, I would actually applaud that, because that would make more sense. Or something that you would expect in that area.
Basically like one of them Cajun diners, right?
Yeah. Where you're gonna have a bunch of variation, and picking it out by taste there makes more sense.
I mean, the Korean version was just so, like, tonally as well. It was really unsettling. Like, do you remember when he eats the octopus alive? Yeah. And they did actually film that. It was an alive octopus, wasn't it? And the tentacle, like all the suckers, are sticking to his face as he just literally mushes it up and just takes a bite out of this octopus.
So it's Kurt Eichenwald's wet dream.
Yeah.
No, there's no wet dream, because there's no you can't have cream in that octopus, just ink.
Oh, that scene made me feel really queasy. Like, whoa.
Yeah, but like I said, Kurt Eichenwald might have saw it as a turn.
Yeah, it was probably. You know what? I am dropping that line of thought now, because I'd like to sleep tonight.
Okay.
But let's see. Now I do have a bit of article reading, but before that, Vlad, it sounded like you had a bit of news that you wanted to get into.
Yeah. So I stumbled across, it seemed as though we were talking about Anita Sarkeesian earlier, and the lies that she peddles about sexualized female characters and sexual violence, it encourages gamers and influences them to think that rape acceptance is
oh my god.
Well, anyway, this article on One Angry Gamer, basically a study was done, and it was published in March of this year, 2nd of March. Research studied by Glenna L. Reed, Teresa Lynch, and Nicholas Matthews, as part of the Sex Roles, a journal of research, covers the topics of whether or not sexy video game avatars help encourage or influence the rape myth acceptance. And it turns out that after testing 300 US college students who either played or watched someone play as a sexualized and a non-sexualized female avatar in games, discovered that participants actually had reduced rape myth acceptance and reduced hostile sexism towards women.
Okay.
Classic.
I think it's time to play some bets, and unfortunately I can't do the auctioneer voice without killing my tongue or something, and I don't feel like biting my tongue again. But I'm putting a few predictions. One, you're going to hear. You can possibly set a drinking game to the number of people who are going to say doesn't count with something in this study. And two, they're going to make the argument that 300 college age students is not a
great aggregate.
Is not a good enough aggregate. To which I say, well, allow me to retort. 100 or so was good enough for the fucking bully hunters, so what's your problem?
But this is an interesting bit in the study that it states. It goes, results contradicted hypothesis that greater tasks and demands and sexualization would produce greater, I'm not sure what RMA stands for, hostile sexism and self-objectification. Instead, we found that sexualization did not affect these variables. So it seems their hypothesis was, they had this, this bias that, oh yeah, of course it's going to make people sexist, and they're going to think that rape accept that rape is fine. Oh god. So their hypothesis
just reminds me. Sorry, go ahead.
That's what it makes me laugh that their hypothesis was that sexualized characters do make people sexist.
That reminds me of that study back in the 90s where they wanted to study to see if violent video games made people more prone to violence, and the results were just completely the opposite.
Oh boy, this is gonna and like I said, this is gonna go over like the gun control debate. It's like,
well, Oops, sorry.
Yeah,
Go
because this is the thing. It's like, oh, they're causing all this violence. Oh, let's call on Lord Sex, and we need to ban this, we need to ban that. But it turns out their studies are showing the opposite happening. And it's like, that didn't exist. It was an alt-right study.
Yeah, they're gonna say that, aren't they? They're gonna try and they're gonna completely try to legitimize
Yeah, or they'll just
study.
Or they'll just go on a limb and say Trump funded it.
Yeah, I really wonder whether Google is going to completely try and bury this study as well.
Yeah.
Well, the study is properly tenured, right?
Say that again, sorry.
The study is properly tenured and submitted for peer review.
Let me see in the article.
Like it's gone through the proper academic channels, is what I'm asking. And by the way, I see that my favorite Scotsman is in the chat. Hello, Kyoryu.
I'm trying to read. I think it has been peer reviewed.
Well, I'm not asking if it. I don't know if it's been peer reviewed per se. What I'm curious about is if this was done through a proper institution or something to that extent. Because it does sound like it is. Who did the study?
So it was a research study by Glenna L. Reed, Teresa Lynch, and Nicholas L. Matthews.
Yeah, but as far as was this at a university? Was this at a institute?
Trying to see where it says in the article. There's also these, like in the article, there's also other links to other studies as well, which were done. There was last year, University of Luxembourg, to test the hypothesis.
Okay, in that case, I think there's at least some degree of tenure, which means Google can't do shit.
There's one here. It says Martha Fernandez de. Oh, that's a long name. Martha Fernandez de Henestrosa and Andrew Belzer from University of Luxembourg set out to test the hypothesis posed by media outlets that sexualized female characters in games encouraged rape myth acceptance.
Luxembourg. I don't know why, but I keep thinking Luxembourg is in Sweden. I'm not sure if it is or not.
Luxembourg is its own country, man.
Yeah.
It's just very tiny. But it's smack dab in the middle of Europe.
And then there's this other one. In May 2017, a study, The Effects of Sexualized Violence in Games on Rape Myth Acceptance. Researchers reluctantly concluded that sexualized avatars in games do not encourage rape myth acceptance.
Reluctantly? was that part of the...
It's like, oh, I give up.
Oh, God. And then there's also jaded authors like Laurie Penny. Do you know her? Have you heard of her?
Oh, yes. I know all about her.
She tossed textual petrol on the ever-burning coal fire of feminist ire, directing the game industry with a piece for The New Statesman published on the 18th of June 2012 titled Lara Croft and Rape Stories, Breaking Down the Bitch. Basically saying,
yeah, that goes back to that saying, women tend to hate other women a lot.
Oh, God. Laurie Penny is such a ugly, mousy woman, isn't she? Well, I wouldn't even call her a woman.
What is their obsession with Lara Croft is what I got to know. Like, out of every...
I'll tell you why.
It's because popular, and it's in the same vein as the obsession with Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, good point.
It's popular, and not only that, her Lara Croft's figure before they gender neutralized it is a bit more appealing than that freaking stick that she is. She looks like she just got lost out of the Shire and got some fucking hair dye on her.
I have played both the reboot and Rise of the Tomb Raider. And
I'm near the end of Rise of the Tomb Raider.
I do have to say this. Rihanna Pratchett, stick to writing Discworld, because you have the worst luck when it comes to writing in video games. And this is not because I'm not saying this because of some virtue signal shit, but more of I don't know if this was on her or on somebody else, because no one person no one cook kills the kitchen. But the writing in both this and the Mirror's Edge games seems to not understand the notion of unifying character with a player with the protagonist.
So basically, she went to the Ryan Johnson School of storytelling.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, a character like Faith, I wanted to like, but it doesn't give me, but they give me every reason to not. Mostly because when it does stuff solely for this, when all the stories do stuff solely for the sake of melodrama, the story does not care about you. Oh God, Kyori was asking about Warhammer Adventures. Oh my God. Oh my God, what the Games Workshop, what the fuck are you thinking?
What happened with Warhammer?
Have you heard about the Warhammer Adventures books?
Oh, that they're going to market to kids now strictly?
It was already marketed towards.
This is a terrible idea. But I will admit that there is a twisted, sick part of me that wants this to succeed well enough that little Timmy goes out and buys a copy of like the First Heretic, or buys a book involving the Dark Eldar or Slanesh demons.
Yeah. So you're thinking this like
with his mommy's money, and then she gets into a tissy fit when she reads the fucking thing.
Yeah, so you're sort of like how people are thinking that Thundercats Roar is going to get everyone to watch the previous cartoon versions, which hopefully it does go that way, because they're going to see how superior they are. It's like, what the hell was I watching?
God, I know that just some guy got me to read the Wildstorm run of the comics when he covered it, because that was interesting, and the thing is, for the longest time, I was under the impression that the 2011 run of Thundercats was killed because of toy sales and low ratings. Yeah, it was recently brought to my attention that's not entirely true. That was a factor, but according to one of the writers who talked about it in a podcast, they were planning on a second season, and then Lego came in and fucked it all up. Because they pitched a Legends of Chima thing for a lot less than Thundercats was going to be doing, so Cartoon Network went with them instead. That's what killed it.
Yeah. So, and I want to talk about this a little. It's like it's with Thundercats. They're basically it's this. Now, about 10 or 20 years ago, they like to remake new shows, try to get the nostalgia staple back. But now what I'm seeing a pattern here with Teen Titans, Thundercats, Star Wars, Ghostbusters, and a few other franchises. It's like, I get the feeling they're resurrecting them to kill it.
I don't think I am. Well, first off, Aaron, do you know what Hanlon's razor is?
I've heard of Occam's razor, but Hanlon's razor I've never heard of.
Never assume malice what can be explained with stupidity.
So you think that this is more just stupidity, other than them trying to be a cultural locust army?
I said about a week ago that that it's funny that they tell their critics to grow up when they're the ones who are chasing after people's childhood, and
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, and the reason why I made that quip is that it's less. I think it's less that they're trying to chase that. It's more of something that I said about social justice warriors 3 years ago, where they want to find dragons so that they can be seen as dragon slayers. Or if you'll forgive me for failing at speaking Greek, they want the kudos without the arete. Aridi, for those who don't know, is a little hard to translate, but for lack of a better term, it means excellence, achievement, being able to doing something very well. And the thing is, they see the amount of adulation that the Teen Titans has, especially the version that came out in the 2000s. The adulation that Batman TAS gets. Oh. The kind of adulation that the original Thundercats gets, and how that's become a staple of geek culture for so many years. Mm-hmm. They see these kind of things get that kind of adulation because geek culture is referential by default and by design, and they think that if they bring those sort of things, why? And Biohybrid, you walking in. There's pretty much everybody but Flatmeister has walked in midway. Don't worry, you're in good company. But they've looked at those things that everybody hails as classics, and they think if we do our own spin on it, then we'll be the new classic. Then we'll be just as popular as the cool kids. That is effectively what it is. It is somebody who puts on a varsity jacket because he thinks it'll put him on the same level as everybody who's on the football team. All of a sudden he can bang Bunny the head cheerleader with the D cup up tits and the freaking bubble butt. Mm-hmm. But that is, and when that doesn't happen, they can't react because they thought they had this whole thing figured out, and it turns out no, they didn't. And that's why they lash out in the way that they did. Yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt again, but and not only that, they even go a step further. Like again, I'm going back to Ryan Johnson again. It's like he wants to kill the original mythos of Star Wars and replace it with his own soy-filled garbage. I think in his case, if that really is the case, it's more of he wants to be talked about in the same way that people talk about what George Lucas did back then. I don't think he wants to kill it out. I think any sort of spite that he has is the fact that people aren't giving him the adulation that he thinks he deserves. Yeah, the only thing they're giving him is spite.
And he's been
rightly so
snarky back, isn't he?
Yeah, not only that, even Mark Hamill, he's like sort of giving him all sorts of backhanded compliments to the guy. They think, oh, Mark Hamill likes me. No, the motherfucker's putting shade on you. It's just you're stupid enough not to realize it. Mark Hamill is doing a very careful tightrope where he's making it clear that he's throwing shade, but he's not outright doing it to the point where somebody might try and have him blackballed. Because I guarantee if he came out and said fuck Ryan Johnson, he would end up being blackballed from so many other people in his own peerage.
Yeah. I mean, did you watch the video? Someone made like the 300 times Mark Hamill tried to warn us about Star Wars, I think the video's called. And it shows, did you see the premiere when he turned up for the premiere of The Last Jedi? There's him hopping about. He's all excited. He doesn't know what I've still not watched The Last Jedi yet. So before he goes in to watch the movie, he's all excited, and then afterwards they got all the cast and crew are sat on this long sofa, and the camera looks to Mark Hamill, and he just has this glazed-eyed, I don't know how to describe it, but he's just got this glazed-over-eyed stare on his face. He's just completely.
He's got the 1,000-yard stare.
So he looks like a man in shock.
Yeah, he probably had that look that is like, I am going to kill this round-headed tool.
He even looks to the left of him and looks right at like the back of Ryan Johnson's head, and he went, "You fucker, what you did to my character, to Luke, to Luke Skywalker. But that's why it makes me wonder whether, with the lead up to The Last Jedi, they were marketing it like, I think sort of in that last year before it hit cinemas, there was him saying some things that Disney didn't really like. And it makes me wonder whether in post-production, they, using CGI and whatnot, I'm trying to be careful here with not, because I've heard the spoilers of what happened to The Last Jedi. Try not to spoil it for the people watching the stream. But yeah, it makes me wonder.
Spoil that's all. You can't really spoil anything that's already been spoiled.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that.
But yeah, it makes me wonder whether after, like, when Disney had to rein Mark Hamill in and went, stop talking shit about Star Wars. But it makes me wonder whether post-production they used CGI to edit something that wasn't in the original script, like the original story outcome. And it makes me wonder whether that's why we got the ending of The Last Jedi that we did. If people get my cryptic meaning.
Oh god! So you think they killed off his character as punishment?
Oh, thanks. That was me trying not to spoil it. And you outright
probably
said
not, but I do remember hearing about rewrites. So I'm not completely dismissing it, but it is interesting if that is the case.
Yeah, that's my theory, is that it was as punishment. They're like, right, okay, we're gonna do this then.
But I have been half entertaining the notion of since I did that whole retrospective of Star Wars RPGs, I have entertained the notion at least once of looking at this and saying, okay, I see what we've got here, but I can do it better.
What I'm really looking forward to, like future Star Wars movies, I want to see Sith training. I want to see what a Sith
they do not have the balls to do that.
I really want to see that. What a Sith master puts their apprentice through. Because did you ever play Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, where you played as
fuck yeah,
a Star Killer,
as
Vader's secret apprentice between the Episode 3 and Episode 4. And it's really cool. On the character design, it shows little tatters on his Starkiller's clothes. It shows tatters and rips, and it also shows like burn scars where either like from training droids, like blaster lasers, or even like lightsabers as well, whether he's received little cuts and burns here and there from blasters and lightsabers. And that really told a story of like, well, he's really gone through a lot through his Sith training to become Vader's apprentice.
The thing when it comes to how the Sith operate is that if the Jedi are defined by harmony, then the Sith are defined by conflict. And their whole notion of you will be put through these kind of hellish trials, and it is not going to be made easier for you. So you either have to become stronger through them, or you die. It's very it's very Darwinian in that sense.
Yeah,
and it's now of course some end up taking this way too far, and there's the issue of the Sith having the Red Queen's Gambit, which is why the rule of two was needed out of necessity, because otherwise they're just gonna end up backstabbing each other or finding ways to have other people backstab them. And the whole thing with the Red Queen's Gambit is the notion of it takes all the running you can just to stay in place. But that is not to say that the Sith are necessarily evil, just born of extreme pragmatism. They certainly can be evil, but it's one of those things where the teachings themselves aren't. But that said, I am. Now, unfortunately, when episode 9 finally does show up, I will be the one to bite the bullet to see it because hey, at least I get free beer.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
So-
you said
Yeah,
the guy
you're
up
gonna
there.
be carrying that cross, huh?
Well, somebody's got to bite the bullet, so it may as well be the guy who can take bumps.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be worse. It's not like I'm spending 5 minutes with Minoru Suzuki or something.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, if Disney did that and showed what a Sith apprentice goes through their training, through the torture and it's just something that's not been explored. We never saw how the Emperor trained Darth Maul. We never saw how.
Well,
Yeah, I suppose
when it came to Maul, we kind of saw that. But that was in the Clone Wars when they introduced the Night Sisters.
Yeah.
Because even though it didn't show Maul himself, what it did show is his race and how they operate, as well as his brother Savage. And then later on, we saw the end point of that with Rebels, where you have Maul, which really showed Maul at his absolute best, because you have him going between half madman and guy who just wants the end, sometimes in the span of a single scene.
Also voiced by Sam Witwer, the guy that played Starkiller in the Force Unleashed games.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I know I've brought this up again, but I feel like I have to keep bringing this up. It is astonishing that the RPG and the tabletop end of things is the only people who seem to get Star Wars that have any real option to. Although if you have the old Jedi Academy, there is the option of playing Movie Battles 2, which is where we got the legendary video series called How to Lightsaber. It's playing a Jedi in that Movie Battles 2 is basically a multiplayer mod, total conversion mod of Jedi Academy, and it introduces its own class and upgrade systems. And one of the interesting things it does is that with the lightsaber, it is a one-hit kill if you can hit. And somebody playing a Jedi is not going to have an instant advantage, because all the force powers cost a pool that doesn't regenerate quickly. So other players who are just using guns, who know what they're doing, can still take you out.
So let me
guess.
Of
course that goes both ways.
Yeah. So let me guess. If you want to play a Jedi, you have to sort of like level up for like 2 freaking weeks. And then...
No, it's nothing like that. With Movie Battles 2, you pick your class on the map in advance, a la Battlefield. Speaking of which, I thought it was a bit of a fail that they already tried the virtue signal shit with Battlefield 5's trailer.
That's why I keep saying EA's conference is going to be such a goddamn dumpster fire. The only way they're going to save it is if there's a public guillotine execution of BioWare devs.
Oh, God.
I do have to say, the year that I was at E3, EA's booth there was the most obnoxious, even compared to some of the other larger studios, because they had some really, not in terms of just the color setup, which is funny because I haven't scanned it, but there was a photo of me on when they were hyping up a Battlefront, riding a speeder bike on on a set that would look like Hoth. Maybe I'll scan and share that picture one day. But the sound, the booming amount of sound that came from their shit was so loud I could hear it from where I was eating.
Yeah. probably got to a point where it's like someone downstairs has just grabbed the broom and go, bop, 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 keep it down up there, will ya?
I mean, like I did a video on the Battlefield 5 thing, and I can't believe how quickly it blew up, about 143 views. But this guy made a comment because I addressed like all of these articles in the video, and like IGN did a like, oh, here's top 20 unrealistic things that Battlefield has done, and one realistic thing, and it was basically just naming gameplay mechanics because they're gameplay mechanics, they're not unrealistic.
Let me
so
say
they're trying to excuse themselves with their virtue signaling. Says,
yeah.
This is why it's okay to virtue signal in Battlefield 5.
Yeah.
Well, first off, one, they're already starting to, before it even came out, they were already starting to pitch that they were going back to their World War II roots, which I kind of figured that was going to happen because of how well that worked out for Call of Duty, even though World War II was fucking stupid. Like I'd say if somebody wants a decent World War II shooter that's come out recently, or just that sort of shooter, just go with Red Orchestra. You'll feel much less guilty.
Yeah. And the thing about World War II shooters is I still think even though they're going back to the well, I still think it's one of the most overdone tropes in shooters. Why can't they go to another era like fucking Vietnam or fucking
They tried that a generation ago, and one, it didn't sell, and two, it caused a bit of a controversy. I think it's also the reason why you don't see many World War I games, simply because of the fact that there's a bit more baggage. With something like World War II, there is significantly less baggage. Although I will outright admit that I think there's some decent stories that can be told, but I think it's very telling that that World War II has been much
Yeah.
kinder to strategy games than to shooters. Yeah. Because Hearts of Iron is still going. There's still the fact that I can still get a decent game going when it comes to the Company of Heroes games. And the original Company of Heroes I consider one of the best strategy games ever made, and certainly the best game that Relic made, which is saying something, because now they're gonna fuck up Age of Empires 4 because they have Relic does not do traditional strategy games. Age of Empires is a traditional strategy game. This is not going to end well.
Yeah, this is going to be one hell of a crapshoot from the looks of it.
But I mean, in the article, like it said, oh, here's some examples of women that did serve, because it was claiming that EA and DICE said, oh, we're wanting to tell other stories of brave people whose stories haven't been told yet.
I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I know, but in the article it named, here's some women that have served in World War II, and it said it named two or three Russian Soviet snipers, and one French resistance and one Norwegian resistance fighter.
Yeah,
they're not frontline. They're not army. They're not soldiers of a country's army, are they? They're not soldiers from that army. They're just resistance fighters.
Yeah, I was laughing my ass off. He's like, "What are you gonna do? Tell the story of some lady that's building tanks in fucking Detroit, or talk about some USO sweetheart, sir, entertain the troops over in fucking Midway?"
Yeah, exactly. Like I would want to play a World War II game in which you play as one of these female Soviet snipers that racked up, several hundred kills.
Yeah, give something like that to the Sniper Elite team, and you've possibly got something there.
I would love to play and hear about this woman's story.
Even though it isn't World War II, I would pay good money to see a game that either talked about or mentioned the White Death. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He was an infamous sniper during the war between Finland and Russia. and it was to the point where they would try and send in entire battalions just to take him out and couldn't do it.
Yeah, basically he's sort of like the Finnish Rambo, huh?
So I mean, I've got no problem with women being, but it has to be historically accurate. Like you can't have in the trailer showing a British woman
the term
on the front lines.
The term that I'm going to be using when it comes to this sort of thing is believability.
Yeah.
I've said for years that I prefer believability over realism. And the thing is the reason why you have to go to these lengths to have that believability is you have to respect that what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to say, oh, we're doing, it's perfectly fine. It's the reason why it's the reason why only the biggest of assholes batted an eye when you had history alteration with Inglourious Bastards.
Exactly. I was just about to say, tonally of the Battlefield 5 trailer, it felt like it was a steampunk fantasy game, and I would have been fine with an alternative history steampunk fantasy game.
We're probably gonna be getting that next year with Iron Harvest.
Yeah,
but yeah, so that's the thing about Battlefield 5's trailer was tonally as well. It felt like. But go on, Bill. Just sorry, I interrupted you.
But yeah, here's the deal, man. Okay, if you want to put freaking transsexuals or women or gay guys in there, here's the key thing that these idiots don't even remember. It's got to make perfect sense. You can't just shoehorn it and say, "Oh, he's just there because he's gay. Accept me." That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Now, if it fits the style and scope, it's like Kingdom Come Deliverance. They're saying, well, why aren't there no people of color in that game? Well, it's the freaking Central Europe in the freaking late Middle Ages. You dolt. The only.
I know some people have brought up that there were Muslims in like Milan or something. Except one, that's closer to the coast, and two, Central Europe is not the same thing as coastal Europe.
Yeah,
totally. But you were gonna say about Inglourious Bastards, weren't you, Mildra?
With Inglourious Bastards, Tarantino outright said that what he wanted to do was take World War II and use storytelling techniques that you would see in a kind of Old West setup. Because he's had a fascination with that kind of stuff for the longest time, and in that context, a lot of stuff really works. Even though he also had that subtext of the love for film, which certainly makes sense given the fact that it's taking place in France, and not to mention if you want to do the whole this. Some chick who was working behind lines or with a resistance force. You already have a good backdrop, because anybody remember the Saboteur? Even though that had an Irish guy working in France.
I'm in the middle of playing that actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really cool game, cool concept.
Yeah, so there's something there, but. To be honest, I think that the reason why they're trying to do this is a distraction because of the fact that the sharks are swimming around them really hard over the loot box thing.
Yeah,
the Jaws team's playing pretty hard, and like I said, the only good thing that's happened to them in the past year was a way out, and that's because the guy that helmed that thing was actually a pretty decent craftsman. Joseph Ferris.
Didn't he also do Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons? That game.
I don't know. No,
I'll have to look that up later. But
it's a really cool story.
I think he established his mindset when he had that incident at the Game Awards. That year.
Oh, I loved it. I loved
the Oscars. Fuck you.
Fuck the Oscars. Fuck you. I mean,
I do have to wonder, was he And Aaron, maybe you'll be able to back me up on this, but do you think he was digging in the same bag? Do you think he grabbed Iron Sheik's bag before he stepped on stage?
I think he was really inebriated, but the fact that he upstaged Jeff Keighley was just amazing. Jeff Keighley wanted just let's move on, but Joseph kept going and going and going. It was great that he basically put that little fucking weasel in his place.
Yeah, but I looked at that thing. All I can think of is just what happens when you spend 5 minutes with the Iron Sheik.
Yeah, but zero fucks given. I mean, he went zero fucks given, and you know what? It's turned out great for him. These days, if you go out there like that, believe me, you're pretty much 95% guaranteed you're gonna come out on top with that.
I mean, look at other game developers that haven't backed down from pressure or bullying from the typical SJWs and such.
Yeah.
You've Daniel Vavra from Kingdom Come from Warhorse Studios.
I think he's getting his vindication because his face is on the cover of some gaming magazines in his home country, and two.
Yeah,
his game is being used to teach history in some universities in that area.
Yeah, and then you've also got Tim Surratt, who he's working on the last night. Yeah, that sort of
Last Light and
2.5D sort of pixel art cyberpunk game.
What provides an interesting contrast with that is that there was a game that was heavily virtue signaled that was in a similar, I guess, motif, I'll say, called Where the Water Flows Like Wine, and it fucking tanked.
Sounds like a fucking walking simulator, dude.
Oh, it was heavily pushed by the progressive game stream media, right? and it had like top people like Sting was billed in the game as well.
Unfortunately, not that Sting. So calm yourself.
Yeah, I know, not that Sting. But anyway, I wonder. I recall that title. Was it one of those that are nominated at the Game Awards for like best some sort of a stupid category that Horizon Zero Dawn won in?
I thought Zero didn't win any. It won Zero.
It won a couple. I think it won a couple or something because. Or am I thinking of a different game or something like that? But they won a couple. I think one for like best impact. That's what it's called, best impact, and the other one for like best voice actor or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Which the voice actor I could kind of see to an extent, but that game's just in a long list of games that's basically telling Blake, yeah, you don't know shit. Because keep in mind, he's the one that said people don't want single player games, and ever since he's got to be kicking himself over saying that.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, you've been hearing the rumors about Fallout 76?
I have been. Okay, first off, let me just say that I have never had a kind word to say about Todd.
Todd the Hobbit. God damn! Someone needs to. The original guys that did Daggerfall, they need to come out of hiding and kick that little Hobbit back to the goddamn Shire. He's starting to get very annoying.
There's also the fact that I find the game design concepts that are present in the Elder Scrolls and the recent Fallout games to be
too
remarkably
casualized.
Condescending.
Yeah, it's too casualized.
Not casualized, condescending.
Oh, so you're thinking it's even worse because, like, oh, we know you can't play this game. You can't beat this. You really can't create a dungeon that you can't get out of. So we're just gonna hold you by the hand the whole time. Luckily, the only thing that's saving it right now.
First off, there's the fact that the creation engine is hanging on by fishing line.
Yeah, it's outdated as a motherfucker. How old is it? Like 20 years old?
It it's not that old, but it was designed for last generation.
Yeah.
It made I'm trying to remember if they used Gamebryo or create. No, they used Creation for the for last generation, and this current generation, it is just not suited for it.
Oh my God.
Well, you know something's up when, unironically, my favorite thing to do in any Fallout or Elder Scrolls game is intentionally try to find glitches or break the game.
Well, they've tried
Yeah.
they've tried in it that the glitch that the reason that they intentionally leave some glitches in to add to the charm, which I don't buy for 1 second. I put that in the
just
same
lazy.
level as when CinemaSin says, "Yeah, we make some intentional mistakes for comedy." It's like, no, you fucking don't. You got it
Bullshit.
wrong.
I'll tell you why they left it in, because they're very lazy. They don't have that ethic that most game designers should be having right now. And that's another big criticism I have of Todd Howard. The guy is fucking lazy.
I'm gonna have to shoot off, Mildra, I'm afraid. It's about 2:30 a.m. I'm afraid.
Yeah. This is one of those cases of damn time zones, and unfortunately, I just moved. I have no desire to move to the UK again to alleviate this sort of thing. Plus, I'd probably get arrested because I'm eating something with a knife and fork.
Yeah, all
license
sharp
for that.
objects are now banned.
Anyway,
You have a license for that sandwich.
anyway,
Do you have the sandwich license?
Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. It's nice meeting you, Aaron.
Same here. Likewise, man.
All right, hope
Have a good one, dude.
to see Blatmeister. Hope to see you again when we do this next week.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Take it easy, Doku.
Have a good evening, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
See you later, Mildra.
Yep.
Mildra, the motherfucking monk. And to everyone watching as well, thank you for having me. Take it easy.
Take care, man.
All right.
See ya.
Take care, dude.
But as far as 76, it's just I can't figure out what to say because every time I think I've got something nailed down on the matter, the story keeps changing.
Yeah, and you know how Jason Schreier is quote unquote reliable. I'm taking that with a grain of salt. But what I think is going to happen is
Schreier has come out with good leaks in the past. But I do have to wonder if he got it if he got it from the same leak that supposedly claimed that George Kamitani said he was gay.
Well, here's what I think what's going on. I think there will be an online component, but I think it's going to be more of a co-op. I hope to God they don't go PvP. If they go PvP, I'm going to be hunting some hobbits.
Oh God, I don't want to imagine a Fallout PvP. No. That idea makes my brain hurt.
I do remember hearing stories about a Fallout Online that went into development hell at one point. But the problem now, the idea of them implementing survival game-esque aspects, that's not too surprising because there's always been a survival mod or a survival mode in previous Fallouts.
Well, like Fallout New Vegas with the realism mode where you had the freaking the water bottle and shit, and you had to eat.
That was awesome.
I loved playing that, to be honest.
Yeah, there's certainly that. So I'm not, but one thing that does concern me is if they make a large amount of it around base building, because that was, in my personal opinion, the worst thing about Fallout 4, to the point where I think you are in very bad territory when I am conjuring up images of Otis from Dead Rising.
Well, I gotta disagree with you here. I actually enjoyed the base building. Maybe it's because because with mods, it ain't as bad.
That's a bandage.
Yeah,
but here's the reason. The reason why is because I'm pretty sure you hated hearing how a settlement needs your help.
Oh God,
that got really annoying. I will admit, I loved building bases, but I don't like protecting them.
For those who have not played the original Dead Rising, Otis was a guy who would occasionally inform you.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but nature calls. Give me a couple minutes, okay?
You got 5 seconds.
Yes, I know. I didn't want to get out too much information, but I'll be back in a bit, okay?
All right. If for those watching who are not aware, Otis was a supporting character in Dead Rising, who would occasionally tell you that there's survivors in certain spots. Except when you answered his walkie on the matter, 1, you were walking very, very slowly. 2, you couldn't use your weapon, and 3, he could drone on a bit, even while zombies are attacking you. And if a zombie ends up hitting you, the call breaks, and he calls again and chastises you. There were multiple, and I don't think I'm alone in the fact that I had very much considered, I could take this chainsaw and saw him in half. Unfortunately, since he's an NPC, I can't, but it's one of those things like, you are really pissing me off right now.
I'll admit, I could not play Dead Rising after the first time I got killed because of one of those stupid fucking walkie-talkie calls.
Yeah, so you know my pain.
Yeah, I was I can't fucking do this. I'll play Left 4 Dead instead. Screw it. And
hearing that whole another settlement needs your help just gave me flashbacks to that. It's one of the it's one of the few things in gaming that can cause a minor bit of triggering. The other is the Jackal snipers.
Oh god, yeah, that's in Halo 2.
Yep.
Yeah, those.
If you're not playing Legendary, they're fine. But as soon as you go into that difficulty, you can barely see them, and they kill you in one shot.
Yeah, one hit kills, and half the time you can barely fucking see them. Halo
at least in 3, they give them these obnoxiously bright headgear.
Oh yeah, the bright purple spotting helmets, the fucking purple light.
Mm-hmm. Which some people may say is a bit unrealistic for a sniper to have that, but on the other hand, it's gameplay appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm willing to look past, because it made it less obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a very strong love-hate relationship with Halo 2.
I honestly, it's one of those, Halo 2 is one of those cases where I felt sorry for Bungie.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that they expand on the plot and kind of the universe, and they flush it out a little bit more. But as far as the game itself goes, exposition aside, there's a lot to be desired.
Well, even they were very critical about it after the fact, and like the Scarab thing, they outright buried. And he's back. As my chiropractor often says, glad to see you're back. And all right, just so I can get this out of the way, nobody better go in that bathroom for the next 45 minutes. Somebody open a window.
All right, back, man.
Oh screw you! Friday is one of my favorite movies.
Okay, who's do this Friday?
It's just that I felt like I got sandbagged when I made that reference after you got out. I said, nobody better go in that bathroom for the next 45 minutes.
Oh god, I got the air freshener and everything. All right, so what did I miss?
A bit of just explaining about Otis and why hearing the another settlement thing in Fallout 4 almost triggered me.
Oh yeah, that's one of the annoying things. I wonder if there's like a mod to sort of moderate that mess. You mean?
I think there is, but it's the principle.
Yeah, I mean I like the only thing is it's okay if you just go in there to build a new settlement. That's about it. I mean, you got laser cannons, you got freaking armed guys, and if you have a few mods, you got Minutemen there protecting it. It's like freaking Fort Knox, and all of a sudden Preston's saying, that settlement still needs your help. I was like, what? You can just march in there and go sack whatever that mess is coming from.
Oh, speaking of fucking settlement building, Never make the mistake that I made, where if you build a bunch of artillery cannons and have fucking settlers manning them, don't fight anything outside of the region of your settlement because you'll get blown the fuck up.
Oh, you mean
this is why I do not believe in the concept of friendly fire.
And so we're just trying to help you with that bandit using a fucking 30mm frickin' mortar. Yeah, thanks for that.
Again, friendly fire is an oxymoron.
Yeah, there's nothing friendly about it. It's just called making a stupid mistake.
Then again, those are the same kind of people who forget one of the age-old rules. The claymore is supposed to be pointed away from you.
Yeah. This side forward.
In fact, if I recall correctly, most claymores will outright say that.
Yeah, they even say the other thing. It's like place it away.
Literally.
Place it facing away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they literally say that on the fucking front
toward enemy.
Yeah, towards enemy. Yeah,
but that's part of the 10 rules of combat that they don't teach you. But as far as the reason why I'm a bit concerned regarding Fallout 76, and this is the reason why the multiplayer aspect and that kind of stuff concerns me, is the notion if they end up going full survival as the main thing for it, that is a sign that they are chasing trends.
Yeah.
That's why the initial leak had me on edge. I thought, oh god, they're again, because whenever you end up doing that, you're not considering, okay, how can we integrate this into what's been established when it comes to Fallout?
Well, honestly, the only thing that I'm really curious about when it comes to Fallout 76 is I'm guessing from the trailer, since they're playing country roads, it's set in West Virginia. And I went to WVU for a semester. I'm really curious to see how they're going to do West Virginia in a post-Fallout style universe.
I don't know how. Yeah, because
from what I was hearing, it sounded like they were going to have it take place in Philly.
Nah,
that would make no sense to play country roads in the trailer, then, though.
Yeah, really. It's like the thing is if they set in West Virginia, it's like I think that the place won't be as bombed out because what's in West Virginia? Coal mines. That's about it. Coal mines, mountains, and trees. That's about it.
Well, in that case, that would be all the more reason to put it in West Virginia because he loves that shit. So he can say, "See that coal mine? You can walk in that."
Well, that's the thing. You have with West Virginia, you have the capital, Charlestown. You have Charlestown, a different spelling, where there's a fucking casino. And you have Morgantown, where West Virginia University is. And then there's Kaiser, where there's a fucking paper factory. And everything else is just fucking rural bullshit.
And I get if the paper factory is anything like the one I was a little too close to at one point, the smell.
Oh my god, it reeks.
Oh yeah.
You can smell shit for fucking miles. Oh my god. It's a terrible smell.
Oh yeah.
Anyone who hasn't, I fucking envy you.
Yeah, the connection's a little off.
Yeah, you're
one thing I'm really curious. Oh, sorry. My robot.
You're silencing a bit.
All right, how about now?
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, you're sounding better.
All right, let me see if I can fucking fix this thing.
Yeah, technology hates you.
It really does.
So, but like I said, I think it's sort of a pretty decent idea because if you're playing in West Virginia, think about it, it's probably like not a low priority target for any Chinese or Russians to bomb. So it'll probably be, for the most part, spared the nuclear problems. But of course, you'll have all the environmental problems that sort of happen because if you think that think about the Shenandoah River or something like that, its flows, you're probably going to get a few ticks of radiation here and there.
Well,
Well, the other
there's certainly
thing,
that.
having been in West Virginia, if they don't utilize this, I'm going to be really pissed off. But I would like to see some mutant fucking bats for once.
Mutant bats, huh?
There's a shit ton of bats in West Virginia.
Oh.
Apparently,
So,
apparently there's also there's been a bit of a bat problem up in Minnesota recently.
Really?
Oh,
Which sounds a bit strange, but I do remember working in a grocery store and a bat showed up.
oh, they could put in this game that would be pretty much one of the better known West Virginia lores, the Flatwoods Monster.
Oh shit! I would be very curious to see. Hopefully, if it is set in West Virginia, I want to see what they do with Point Pleasant. Because if they don't do a Mothman Easter egg, I'm going to be pissed.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I'm not slagging Fallout 76, but at this point, I am cautiously optimistic. Very cautious because I do not trust. But I have a very low trust factor when it comes to Bethesda. I tolerate them at best because, well, I'd probably be putting them more on blast if Prey didn't come out last year.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. Let's just put it. This is why I'm a little. This is what draws up my concern with Fallout 76. Fallout Miami and Fallout Cascadia, 2 DLC-sized mods. I'm looking forward to those a bit more than Fallout 76. Now, hopefully, they might come up with something really, really good for that. And I said, you know what? I'll probably pick it up. But it's starting to look like at this stage, it's more like wait for the next Steam sale at this point.
Yeah, the thing with Fallout and Elder Scrolls, I love the franchises, but I hate the fucking developer.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I've seen a lot of people get on the hate train when it comes to the Elder Scrolls. I've been on that hate train for about a decade. Mostly because after all this time, they still can't fix their goddamn melee combat. It's still shit. And I will not allow anybody to go with the argument of, oh well, you can't do decent first person combat.
Guess they never played Kingdom Come Deliverance.
With melee. Kingdom Come, Breakdown, Mach-In X, hell, even the Vermintide games do a better job. Hell, Dark Messiah, the greatest first person kicker.
Honestly, when it comes to melee combat, one of my favorite as far as the fantasy genre goes is still Kingdoms of Amalur.
I absolutely love Kingdoms of Amalur, and I think it's a damn shame what ultimately ended up happening.
Yeah, I'm still bitter about that because I fucking love that game. It's basically World of Warcraft. That's really the only decent analogy I have for it.
And the thing is that the guy who was apparently a former pitcher before he decided to delve into this, he's got a long history of standing up for MMOs, which is why, and the fact that he was assembling this team together and the stuff that he was doing was why I was interested. But to me, Kingdoms of Amalur was basically the better Fable than Fable.
Yeah, that's it's basically Fable and fucking World of Warcraft had a baby, and that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that one up because.
And I think the thing that I enjoyed the most out of it was how it handled its classes, which Mass Effect Andromeda tried to duplicate, but at the same time doing the stuff for Mass Effect 3 at the same time, and it didn't work.
Well, of course it wasn't going to work. The most of the dev team was a bunch of ham and eggers that probably were diversity hires.
And let me make this clear. Yes, I've beaten Mass Effect Andromeda. No, I did not pay for it. What happened was, I come home from work, I check the mailbox, and I see a note saying that you've got a package waiting for you at the office. I pick the thing up, and it's from that guy. And I open the thing up, just dreading as if I'm opening up the note for whether or not I'm getting a stay of execution. And inside is a copy of Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh my!
Merry fucking Christmas.
This wasn't a Christmas gift. This wasn't even a birthday gift. This was
Torture, a torture device.
Well, he knew that I don't make a habit of throwing out or returning stuff that's gifted to me. So he knew that I would force myself to play it. So yeah, torture is an apt term in this case.
I can't say I envy you.
Well, like I said, I'll just put it this way: this is something you would torture people in Gitmo with.
But
Yeah,
I powered through. But the sole reason I powered through it is because much like Dream and Oli, I am not giving him the damn satisfaction. It will never be over, baby.
Actually, speaking of games, did any of you guys see that game Beware? I only found out about it because of PewDiePie, but I'm very curious to see what becomes of that game.
It's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, I haven't delved too much into that.
So,
speaking of,
do you know the premise? At least,
what's the skinny?
Basically, okay, it's a driving game, but it's a horror game. So you're basically in a car being chased by another car, and there's basically a bunch of like redneck hillbillies trying to kill you.
So essentially, somebody took Steven Spielberg's first film and turned it into a video game.
It's Duel the Game.
I mean, it's a very interesting concept. I think it's in beta right now. It's like I'll probably keep an eye out. I probably won't put down money on it yet because you know how cautious I am when it comes to this sort of thing. Also, since Kyoryu brought it up, even though he brought it up a while ago, I suppose I should bring this up. The idea of Capcom doing a new Mega Man game, I do have to wonder if they did it simply out of how embarrassing Mighty Number 9 was.
Oh yeah, they probably want to sort of restore the damage that those idiots over at Concept did.
Which I think it's very telling that after that and Yaiba, I have not heard hide nor hair from Concept. I don't even know if they're still in operation or if they've been reduced to somebody's helper studio.
Yeah, I bet you Inafune's probably gotten to self-imposed exile, or hell, I wouldn't be surprised if he's ghostwriting Mega Man 11.
As far as the ghostwriting thing, I don't see that as a likelihood. What I do see, what I would not be surprised is if they decided to get back together with Inti Creates, because for as bad as Concept is, Inti Creates is not a bad studio. I'd say Mighty Number 9 is the one black mark on their otherwise flawless record, because they're the same studio that handled the Mega Man Zero games, which are good but fucking hard. Although they also had possibly the best villain in the whole Mega Man franchise with Dr. Weil. Yeah, I said it. I put Weil on a higher pedestal over Wily or Sigma, because Weil is the embodiment of the hate line from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. That is the level of fucked up that he is, and they also did its successor Mega Man ZX, and the last thing that they did on their own was if anyone remembers Azure Striker Gunvolt, which certainly had aspects of a Mega Man style game, but comparing the two is not entirely a fair assessment.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm just waiting for another Darkstalkers game.
Yeah. I'm not.
You might have to keep waiting on that front. Although I suspect that the runaway success that Monster Hunter World became is making Capcom rethink their strategies. Because they might be getting on the notion that this fascination and obsession with with trying to be Western, which is what they were trying to do under a large chunk of Inafune's run, that might start to run its course.
I wouldn't blame Japan for banning ship on that one because Western entertainment, especially most game development, it's turned into a fucking shit show thanks to the fucking soy syndicate.
Something to keep in mind is that the drive for trying to be more Western goes all the way back to the early days of the 360.
Yeah.
It was something that Inafune had pushed very hard for, and this was something that was also covered in Derek Alexander's past mortem on Mighty Number 9, where his group Stop Skeletons had taken a look at Inafune's career himself, and the fact that and I can understand at first because the Xbox 360 was proving very viable for a global market, and Capcom, along with a lot of other companies, thought that they needed to make that sort of Western appeal in order to reach a global market. It was at the reason for a lot of the changes that happened with DMC, but I'm not opening that can of worms right now.
Yeah, I would say that their whole campaign has completely backfired, and now they've been in the doghouse quite a few times because of it.
Yeah. And because of that, they ended up relying way too much on stuff like Street Fighter. And now, but with the fact that Monster Hunter World broke a million shipping, and is still doing fairly well as the fact that being a PS4 exclusive has certainly helped them tremendously, and adding to the list of, even though it's not, okay, if you want to wring my hands about it, it's a timed exclusive because the Steam version is still coming, but still, the fact that it managed that Monster Hunter World, which the Monster Hunter series has always been one that's struggled to do well within the West. It does gangbusters in Japan, but not anywhere else.
It's sort of like the Dragon Quest series.
Yeah. And even Dragon Quest has gained at least a little bit of a following, but nowhere near the worship that it's had beforehand. And it's like that being to its lateness.
Yeah, I think what happened. The thing is, Dragon Quest in Japan, that's like whenever the release date is basically their goddamn national holiday.
Well, I can't. It may as well have been at one point, because there were a few times where they had it set that there's just not going to be school that day because everybody's going to be in line to pick up Dragon Quest. So what's the point?
Yeah, just make it a de facto national holiday.
Mm-hmm. Similar thing happens with Monster Hunter these days. But the thing is, I'm not going to jump into it just yet, because I think that's a little premature. But I do feel that a release of a Mega Man is them slowly trying to undo the Western chase. It's going to take some time, but I think the success of Monster Hunter World and the announcement of a Mega Man 11 is them making steps towards that.
So do you think Capcom has decided it's time to just go back to our roots?
I don't like using the term "go back" as somebody who's a Resident Evil fan. I've heard that so many goddamn times. But with how successful Resident Evil 7 was, with how well Monster Hunter World has been doing, and the like, I think it is sending that message. I'd like to hope that it's sending that message.
Yeah, like I said, I think what happened is, I think the impetus is Nintendo, because they decided to say, you know what, screw trying to chase the West, let them come to us, just like they did back in the 80s, and now it's become successful because of that. So once again, every other third-party developer in Japan, I wish Square Enix would follow that trend.
God,
they're all rushing back to what worked, and now the Japanese just like in the 80s, has to bail out the video gaming industry yet again.
Well, I know
As far
Mildred
as-
knows this about me.
As far as Square goes,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mildred.
that's it's interesting that you bring that up, considering how for the longest time I had pegged that the Cydia arcade would not even reach the West, simply because it was built for arcades first and then later ported on the consoles.
Yeah.
But the Cydia NT is actually pretty good, and I will give them their credit for what they did to revitalize 14 to the point where that's become one of their bigger cash cows. And 15 did pretty well for themselves.
Oh, I liked 15. Don't get me wrong, but here's the thing: the game felt incomplete, and I still think, despite the updates, it still feels incomplete. Because have you ever?
I don't want to go down that route, because every time I go down that route, I end up being reminded of how incomplete my first edition of Call of Cthulhu was about 15 years ago.
Yeah, but the reason I say that though is any of you ever seen the footage where they had a whole second half planned out? You went into like Tenebrae, you went to Niflheim. There's like a couple other good. There's like a huge big spot where it's like it had, because when you're in Lucy's, you have a chock full of content like the whole road trip. They were going to repeat that in the second half, but apparently it's like
I think it's a case of just the constant amount of tumult going from it being part of the Fabula Nova project to what it ended up becoming. And that's why I put it in the same, even though there hasn't been detail when it comes to post-mortem the way I'd want there to be, I put it in the same category as Halo 2 or Metal Gear Solid 5.
Oh, Metal Gear Solid 5, that's a big example of it, because I basically said the same thing about Final Fantasy 15, comparing it to 5, but the only exception is Taba's actually working on Final Fantasy 15. Kojima's out doing his own thing now.
Yeah, and we'll probably finally get some footage for Death Stranding and Cyberpunk 2077.
I wouldn't hold my breath with the latter. The former, maybe in the next couple years, but 2077, I think it's hit vaporware status, because CD Projekt Red, I've been hearing there's been a lot of tumult there at that end.
Well, part of the reason why I'm having hopes for it is because this project, when it comes to it, is twofold. Because yes, there's that, but there's also the fact that it's done in collaboration with R. Talzorian Games, who is releasing a new edition of the Cyberpunk RPG, also titled 2077.
Yeah.
And
I hope that game succeeds, because for the longest time, one of my dreams that I know will never come true is I want to see an MMORPG set in the Blade Runner universe.
That I don't think is even possible. The closest that we got was the Matrix Online, and that was a dud, because they handed development of that over to Monolith, who I'll give them credit for trying, but they were completely out of their league, because
they're ham and
they
eggers.
were not the right studio. I played that game, and I'll admit I love it as a fanboy, but the game itself was just
It's boring.
It's not playable. It's unplayable.
Well, and that's not to say Monolith is a bad studio. This is the same studio that's done one of my favorite FPSs of all time, Fear. And
that's a good one.
And there's also the fact that they're responsible for the Shadow of Mordor games. I mean, yeah, there was the whole loot box thing that happened with Shadow of War, but other than that, the game, but loot boxes aside, the game still retained its quality. But the problem is that they were. Just because the studio is good at one kind of game, but does not mean that they're going to be good at any kind of game. It's also the same it's in the same vein as being a good actor doesn't mean you can do every role. Not to get off on it, but that was the reason why when the Sony leaks happened and the notion of Idris Elba being James Bond was brought up, I said that is a terrible idea because Elba can't do that kind of swagger.
Yeah, I like Idris Elba as an actor, but the problem here is the guy he's become sort of the studio's diversity hire. I'm sorry, this guy's on, and the problem is they're even insulting him even more than going that route because all you're doing is wasting talent into some other role that he could be awesome at.
The thing with Elba is that he is very good at playing that stoic, commanding presence. Like this is why I actually defended his appearance as Heimdall in Thor.
Yeah, I mean, come on, the guy. I mean, most of those roles he's played. I mean, like you could tell there's always snippets of Stringer Bell in him because every time I see Idris Elba in anything, it's like I always think Stringer. You know what I mean?
But he's somebody who can communicate a lot without saying anything, and that's where he's at his best. Regardless, things are going to get interesting when it comes to E3, and I very much look forward to the people who are going to decry it as saying, "Oh, this E3 is the worst ever." Even though, although something that I saw 3 years ago.
Okay.
Oh, you're going?
Yeah, I'm going into E3 with very low expectations with this one because aside from Kingdom Hearts 3, I don't think nothing's going to come from Square Enix except for some Marvel shovelware. EA's going to be it's going to be a complete shit show.
Hopefully they fix their fucking sound. As far as Square, what I'm probably gonna the highlight is probably gonna be if Yoshi P shows up because he always has a way to make things interesting and he always ends up telegraphing what's gonna show up for 14. Like the year that I went there, that was when Heavensward just came out for 14, and he telegraphed what was going to be in it by showing up in a Batman shirt.
Oh,
and wouldn't you know it, one of the new classes that expansion added 3 new classes. One of them was the Dark Knight. And when Stormblood came out, he did this exact same thing because he came out with a Scarlet Witch shirt. And one of the new classes in Stormblood was the Red Mage.
Ah, I see what he did there.
Mm-hmm.
He's clever when it comes to that kind of what can we really call it? Like meta marketing, or I'm not really sure how to quantify it.
The thing is that he cut his teeth on the early days of Ultima. So he's somebody who knows his way around when it comes to MMOs. That's why A Realm Reborn managed to be so successful. But the big booths have never been what I've been interested in. Although there are a few things that I'm looking forward to see some more stuff in. One of them is Insomniac's take on Spider-Man.
Oh boy. Well, that should. Well, as long as they sort of stay with the old how Activision, because I think Spider-Man 2, in my opinion, is still the ultimate Spider-Man game because it's highly
open things.
Yeah.
One, they have made it clear that they're not trying to tie it into any movie.
That's good. That's a good thing.
2,
yeah, that's a very good thing.
Very good thing.
2, they outright stated that one of their goals was to try and do web slinging just as good as Spider-Man 2, or surpass it if they could.
So we actually have a studio that's actually going to try.
Well, it's being done by Insomniac.
Okay.
They know their way around when it comes to doing platforming properly. they've got experience, because keep in mind this is the same studio who did Spyro back in the day, and then later on did Sly Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And also they had also handled the Resistance trilogy, which isn't a platformer, but they managed to do very well for themselves on that front. There's also the game. Here's the thing I find kind of funny. For years, everybody has clamored at Ubisoft, do an Assassin's Creed game set in Japan. That has been the biggest request possible, or do something to make up for the fact that your Chinese Assassin's Creed as part of Chronicles was just a disappointment. It was just part of a 2D thing, which is an interesting concept, but Mark of the Ninja did it better.
Yeah.
And it's gotten to the point where Sucker Punch has decided to step in and say, "We will," and thus Ghost of Tanegashima is born.
Oh.
Actually, no. Conceptually, one of the games that I really would like to see, perhaps a more competent studio and an updated version, or at least a little bit more of a versatile version. I want to see a version of Jade Empire. I will second that wholeheartedly, simply because, one, that sort of RPG we don't have enough of, and two, Jade Empire. I've mentioned this before, but Jade Empire is my favorite BioWare game. Period. I love that game.
BioWare.
The whole concept was great.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see, honestly, if Square Enix could actually get its shit together and remember what it was. And, well, just as a quick aside, I'm starting to see kind of some hints of this, so I'm very, very cautiously hopeful. But I hope studios like Capcom and Square Enix remember that there's an entire generation of gamers who still play video games, who have plenty of disposable income, who grew up on things like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, Dead or Alive, the original Ninja Gaiden, Darkstalkers, Street Fighter.
I can understand that, but what I don't want to happen is I don't want nostalgia to be turned into a farce. There's a reason why I've called nostalgia the sweet poison.
Well, yeah, I don't want to see basically updated versions or ports of games that I already know and love, because I already have them on fucking discs sitting over there in my fucking living room. I don't need that.
The other thing that I don't want to
remember what made them good and why people liked them
is nostalgic bait like Bravely Default.
Well, and that's, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to see like an appeal to nostalgia. More what I want to see is the studios remember why these games were loved and why people still talk about them today, and kind of get back to that.
Although,
stop trying to imitate your competitors.
Since you brought up Jade Empire, I will make a few notes. There is one game on Steam that might satisfy that kind of itch, even though it's a semi-traditional console style RPG. Have you ever heard of I've mentioned this before, but the Gate of Firmament? It's apparently part of a long-running series in China called Shuan Yuan Sword.
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Not familiar with that one.
Yeah. This was the Gate of Firmament was the first game in that series to get released in English, and it's pretty decent. It can get a little cutscene heavy at times, but not too terribly. Another one that would be an easy recommend in that sort of style is Tale of Wuxia, the pre-sequel. I would have recommended the original Tale of Wuxia as well, but the translation is kind of iffy, and it's one of those games that has a time limit, a la the time limit in the original Fallout before that got patched out. And that's a bit. I can understand their purpose, but I also understand that they're a bit of a hard sell. But it's funny you bring that up because there was an article about a month ago on EN World that argued, do we still need Oriental Adventures? And I wanted to try and
yes.
read through this too, because I need you to suffer. I need you guys to suffer with me.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
But so I'm gonna go through this and you guys let me know when you want to step in. And I suppose I should also mention that although we're not getting anything televised for a while, we are getting a new Judge Dredd tabletop RPG.
Interesting.
Yep. And they've issued a bit of previews, including the judge careers, and there's multiple careers because not every judge is created equal, as well as showing the stats for the lawgiver.
You know, that concerns me because I didn't watch the video, but I saw the title, and a few days ago I heard that there is a very, how do we say, progressive Judge Dredd comic book.
Oh God.
Yeah. That makes me very, very concerned. I don't know.
I haven't seen any. The soy alarm hasn't come up just yet. So if that's the case, I have not seen it.
I hope it stays true to what the original was, and they don't try to get political with it and just give us Judge Dredd. Just don't inject politics into it. Just give us something entertaining, please, to God. Because I could see that being really fun. If it's not like some of the shit they've been pulling with like D&D and Magic the Gathering.
Oh God! And by the way, sorry to interrupt again, but later on, I want to go back into that because there was a point that I didn't finish a while ago, but it ties into something that I want to talk about in relation to. I'll just save it for later, but I just want to put that out right now.
Right. Anyway, okay. Now I did link you guys the article in question is titled "Do We Still Need Oriental Adventures?"
I'm already smelling the soy.
All right, it's written by Talion, also known as Mike Tresca, who, surprise, surprise, has a you can follow him at Patreon.
Oh boy.
Okay, there's our first red flag. Now, I had covered this in a blog post in the Monastery a couple months ago, but I felt it was good. I felt it would be a good revisit for the debut episode of the Monastery live show. But anyway, it starts saying, Orientalism, a wide-ranging term originally used to encompass depictions of Middle Eastern, South Asian, and East Asian cultures, has gradually come to represent a more negative term. Should Dungeons and Dragons, known for two well-received books titled Oriental Adventures, have another edition dedicated to Eastern cultures? And he puts in Eastern in heavy quotes. And the short version, my short answer is yes.
Yes,
should it be called Oriental Adventures? Probably not.
Nah, because that's too general of a title in my opinion.
However, here's the reason why I argue that there should be. Because I am sick to death of the assumption that when I'm opening up D&D that I have to run my game in the Tolkien melting pot, as I've called it.
Ugh.
I don't know if you remember, but there was an expansion for Morrowind that people criticized as being too weird and not fantasy because it wasn't doing that kind of Tolkien melting pot. And to explain what I mean by the Tolkien melting pot, and I have nothing against Tolkien's work specifically. This isn't me slagging on him. The Tolkien melting pot is taking things like the works of Tolkien and the like. Very British stylings when it comes to how your particular brand of fantasy works, and very much in the vein of both that and say Arthurian myth.
So basically, it's basically Tolkien snobbery, if you will.
It's European medieval fantasy, basically. It's
more of Brit. It's given the differences between that and say The Witcher, which is much more European. I'd say it's primarily British fantasy.
Yeah,
it's definitely centered in Britain. I can give you that.
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, I don't have a problem with it on paper. What I have a problem with is the assumption that that's what I have to do. I've mentioned this many times, but I resent the notion of tradition for its own sake.
Yeah.
And that anyway, he goes on to say a brief history of Orientalism. For a time, Orientalism was a term used by art historians and literary scholars to group Eastern cultures together. That changed in 1978 with Edward Said's Orientalism, which argued that treatment of these cultures conflated peoples, times, and places into a narrative of incident and adventure in an exotic land. Which is true and not true. Because at the same time, when you consider the adventure serials that have been popular for so long, there is a sort of appeal of going to these exotic places where the niceties of familiar culture aren't there. It's the reason why you had so many pulp adventures in the jungle. Your Doc Savages, your Phantom, and even the stuff that Robert E. Howard was doing. Or a better example, Edgar Rice Burroughs. Like I know Tarzan is his most popular work, but I always have had a soft spot for the Barsoom Saga. Well, that and because Deja Thoris. Enough said. But he goes, it's easy to see why this approach might appeal to role-playing games, as it does. Orientalism is one lens to view a non-European culture within the game's context. We previously discussed how othering can create a mishmash of cultures, and it can apply to Orientalism as well.
Othering.
Okay. Here we go with our first red flag.
Buzzwords.
First off, othering is not a word.
Exactly.
Now, second off, it's a bit hypocritical for them to complain about this sort of thing when these are the same people that want diversity but also don't want people to mix, i.e. social justice warriors hate a mixed race guy like myself. Mm-hmm. Or somebody that they can't or they try and put me in there was one particular case where somebody tried to say that I was a white passing black man, and I resisted the urge to smack them.
Oh, I get that shit too. Except for Smag is like, man, you're lucky I'm not kicking you in the freaking bags.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would. If I was in your shoes, I probably would have not had the self-control to not punch a motherfucker in the face.
But but look at it this way, man. That self-control, considering all the events that's been happening in the past few years, it's withering away. It's eroding away. It's like if some soy motherfucker comes up to me like that, it's like, it's gonna be like, I'll be like Debo. I'll be like Debo.
Whenever these sort of things have happened in the past, I've outright said, I promised I would not hit anyone. But technically, a chicken wing is not hitting.
Valid point.
There is a reason why if somebody said, "Who's the scariest man in wrestling?" I'd say Minoru Suzuki. The man who
valid point.
The man who scares even the other people in the locker room.
Oh, so basically, it's like the question is, can he scare Meg?
That is a question I cannot answer.
Depends on how drunk either of them are, and whether or not Mang's in a bar.
Oh boy.
Because Mang and bars do not go along.
Oh boy.
I mean,
Real quick, in regards to this article, I can already pick up on something, and I want to just make this statement before I forget it. Whoever's writing this article doesn't necessarily seem to understand the concept of culture, or what even makes up the concept or idea of cultures. There's always something distinctive or unique about different cultures. And since we were on the concept of fantasy just a bit ago, I will say the Tolkienian idea of fantasy is actually not something new. Before Tolkien was ever even born, there was a book that was written in China called The Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah, it's one of the pillars of wuxia fiction.
Yeah, and it's been around much longer than Tolkienian fantasy or Game of Thrones or any of that shit. It's fucking, I think, like what, 2,000 or 1,000 years old, some shit like that.
Yeah,
it's been around for a minute. Yeah, it's been around for a long time.
And the funny thing is, the only exposure we get these days is the Dynasty Warriors series. That's about it.
Koei also handles a Romance of the Three Kingdoms game series, but that isn't as exposed. Probably because strategy games are considerably niche. And Romance of the Three Kingdoms is attributed to the 14th century. However, and this is where things are going to get interesting, because it has been announced that we are getting a Total War Three Kingdoms. That is going to be interesting.
Okay, that's something I would look into, because I've been having a whole lot of fun with Warhammer Total War.
Yeah, really.
Warhammer and Warhammer 2 Total War were pretty decent games, but they were very back to basics. Britannia I wanted to like more than I ended up doing. It honestly feels like a slimmed down version of Attila with way too big of a map. And it's not a very good look for they pitched the Total War Sagas idea by comparing it to Fall of the Samurai, which is a phenomenal expansion to Shogun 2. It almost turns it into a completely different game. But anyway, he goes on to say, the challenge is in how to portray a culture with nuance, and often one large region isn't enough to do the topic justice. Except that sort of thing can only really apply when you're dealing with a setting that's going to have multiple different cultures. There is an issue of how much attention can we give to one over another. What he's asking as far as his sort of nuance is essentially give every single culture their own setting book. That is going to result in a ridiculous amount of bloat.
Yeah, that's unnecessary. It'd be too convoluted. It's basically like trying to balkanize the entire fantasy world.
Yep. And anyway, he goes, the concept even applies to the idea of the East and the Orient, which turns all of the Asian regions into one monoculture. Wikipedia explains that term in context. Quote, the imperial conquest of non-white countries was intellectually justified with the fetishization of the Eastern world, which was affected by the cultural generalizations that divided the peoples of the world into the artificial binary relationship of the Eastern world and the Western world. The dichotomy which identified, designated, and subordinated the peoples of the Orient as the other, as the non-European self. Which is kind of hilarious, because that's exactly what you're fucking doing.
Exactly.
Who was it who supposedly this massive progressive who wants to elevate everybody else, who made that comment of bombing them into traditional values? Oh yeah, it was fucking Anita, your little savior.
Yeah.
That touches on something that I was gonna mention earlier in our conversation, but it boils down to this idea of identity politics, and the fundamental core of that dogma is, in order for it to work, you you have to fundamentally ignore the fact that people are individuals and everybody has their own tastes, preferences, life experiences. You have to paint everybody with broad brush strokes, like, well, this guy's black, this guy's Hispanic, that's a man, that's a woman.
Them with meta tags.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
exactly. You have to fit someone into a box. So you fundamentally have to ignore the fact that everyone is an individual and has their own unique preferences and differences. I mean, shit. Yeah, this guy's arguing, oh, we got to pay attention to all these different cultures. Like, how many people within that culture actually fit into your little fucking box? Because last time I checked, I can go to a bar.
Mind the fact that and this was something I ranted about when Black Panther came out. How many people shouting Wakanda forever know about the Zulu Empire or how brutal Shaka Zulu was during his reign? How many people?
I would argue none of them.
How many people were trying? How many of those sort of people were trying to champion a Tales style RPG that was developed in South Africa, Orion, which is actually very, very good, and I highly recommend it. But no, it's me who ends up trying to push that sort of stuff, and not because I want to. The reason why I push so hard for wuxia style games or games that take place in African mythos is not because I'm trying to enforce some sort of diversity, but simply because I don't see enough of those worlds, and I want to see more of them. It's like the old line of "I love black holes because I don't understand them."
Yeah, but here's the thing. Yeah, and also that's another thing. That's the whole. Some people that tend to be pretty ignorant about South Africa's history. Everyone knows about the only thing most people know about South Africa is apartheid. No, it goes further. Actually, I read into that when I heard about this whole Malema thing. It turns out all this shit goes back further. It's like the Boer came there. It was no one settled there except for like the locals, and those guys got along famously. And then the Zulu tribes came down there, and it's been a shit show ever since.
Well, and that's the thing I always like to point out about SJWs versus just. I'm not even going to say anti-SJWs, but just normal people. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between, they like to say cultural appropriation. Most people appreciate other cultures for what they are because it's something.
Troy Levitt made that exact point and used as a point of reference his time in Korea.
Yeah, that's the it's the idea of what's the term? The idea of soft bigotry, which is kind of a weird term to use, but I suppose it's appropriate.
The bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah, and I mean, I know Fox did a news piece a few years ago on this, and it highlights it perfectly. They went to, I believe it was UCal Berkeley, and asked a bunch of students, are voter ID laws racist? And the vast majority of them, I know they only probably highlighted the ones that fit the narrative. I'm sure there's plenty of other students that laughed at them, but there's a good amount of people that would argue, yeah, voter ID laws are racist. And then when they give their explanation as to why, it's because, well, people of a certain ethnicity or a certain, economic status don't have access to, ID, or they can't afford it, Then they went to fucking Harlem. Then they went to Harlem. Or it was either Harlem or Brooklyn in New York. It's one of the two. And specifically asked black people, do you have ID? Do you know where the DMV is? And I know there was one individual in particular that sticks out in mind. Is this chick is looking at the dude. She's like, am I being punked? Like, is this a joke? Like, are you serious? Like, do you think I don't know where the DMV is located? You think I don't carry around ID? Like, what? Like, it's so ironic to me that these people are so caught up in this identity politics dogma that they end up becoming the very thing they hate, because they have to create the problem in order to fight against it. Otherwise,
do not fight with monsters, lest ye become one.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, they don't even have the honesty when they're asked that question to say, "Oh, my professor just told me that."
It's because they don't think they want they want to have a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning. They want to feel important, but they don't actually think for themselves. They just they want to be popular. They want to be the quarterback, but they can't throw a football.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah. And anyway, goes on to say game designers who were often admitted fans of Asian cultures don't like how that was said. I could almost feel a sneer with how that was said. Sought to introduce a new kind of fantasy into traditional Western tropes. Viewed through a modern lens, their approach would likely be different today. Who gives a shit?
Oh my god!
A modern lens looking at older stuff does not mean dick.
Modern lens. The question here is, by modern lens, what they mean? They're stupid. They're stupid. Fucking cat lady glasses or something.
No, I'm not going to even grant that. Let me put things in a bit of perspective where I'm coming from. Back in high school, I made a card game called Legend Wars. I made 2 starter decks from it, and that was about it. I revisited the rules that I wrote for that, and I just tore it a new one with everything that was worded so poorly. Now, yes, an artist is their own worst critic. But when I saw what I had written in there and how it played out, it was really bad. And I could make the argument that viewed through a modern lens, I would not do this, because there were certain aspects, and I won't go into the details, but there were certain aspects that were very weeb-ish. But it's not like anybody's going to create a masterpiece when they're 15.
Yeah, that or at least take your time with it. You know what I mean? Try to rethink all the things where you did wrong and try. Okay, how can I clean this up?
Now, would I return to it later on to see if I could do it better? Possibly. Although I think I should be given some credit, because the only thing I had to work with was a copy of Magic Set Editor, which is how I end up playing. Which has given me the most fun and the most utility for all these years. It's still amazing.
The one thing about this article with the statement that writer just made, as a writer, the thing that's making my eye twitch with irritation is the only purpose of that statement is self-serving smugness. It doesn't make a point. It serves no purpose. It doesn't do anything except stroke the author's ego. If you can even call this person an author.
Yeah, you could make a lengthy rant about how racist Song of the South is, and the rebuttal would be, what's the point? Like,
there's no point except for the fact that the author wants to fucking stroke his ego. It's a completely pointless and smug statement. It's self-serving for the sake of
signal his virtue, saying he's basically saying, I'm helping.
Yep. Anyway, he goes on. The original Oriental Adventures, which I have, because of course I do. You would be disappointed if I didn't. Was published in 1985 by co-creator of D&D Gary Gygax, David Zeb Cook, and Francois Marcella Freudeval. It introduced the ninja, Kensai, Sword Saints, Wuzhen, and Shugen, and they pronounce it as it's written as Shukenja, but it's supposed to be Shugenja, you idiot. As well as new takes on the barbarian and monk. It was also the first supplement to introduce non-weapon proficiencies, a precursor to D&D's skill system. The book was well received and was envisioned as Gygax as an opportunity to reinvigorate the line, ambitions that collapsed when he left the company. The book's hardcover text had the following printed on the back. The mysterious and exotic Orient, lands of spices and warlords, has at last opened her gates to the west.
Oh boy, that's gonna trigger a lot of the cat lady cult.
Historically accurate.
I can shoot down any triggering with just one sentence. This was made in 1985. This was at a time when first off Japan was kicking everybody's ass economically. But there's also the fact that for a lot of people, this would have been their first introduction. This was when people were Japanimation was still a word that was being used some degree of frequency in the lexicon. This was still at a time when a lot of the stuff that we know is common when it comes to Japan was only just starting to be exposed. So
yeah, the West wasn't really familiar with Oriental culture in any great degree. So it was, again, that idea of cultural appreciation as opposed to appropriation.
Not to mention a lot of the appreciation that was coming out around that time was attempts to undo the propaganda from World War II. It's the reason why even with its issues, I will still defend the changes that happened between the original Gojira and Godzilla King of the Monsters, and why I use that as an example when the Treehouse shit happened, because even with all the changes that were done, there was still a great degree of respect for where it came from and what it was adapting.
Yeah. And not to mention, back in 1985, you didn't have as many people that are so easily offended over everything.
Yeah. Now, apparently, Aaron Trammell, to which you might go, ooh, 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 had provided an analysis on how problematic this one line of text is. The sum of his argument, quote, although Gary Gygax envisioned a campaign which brought a multicultural dimension to Dungeons and Dragons, the reality is that lumping together Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Mongolian, Philippine, and Southeast Asian lore, he and co-authors David Zeb Cook and Francois Marcel Freudeval actually developed a campaign setting that reinforced Western culture's already racist understanding of the Orient.
Okay, where's my hammer? Where's my hammer?
You know, I have a good analogy here. If I ever had the chance to speak with this author, I would ask him this question, just to see where his mindset is, because I already know where his mindset is, but just to see what kind of fucking mental gymnastics he could try to pull. The idea of curry. What is curry? Where did it originate from? Where do you attribute what culture is responsible for the creation of curry? Something that the majority of the world enjoys. The short answer is none. Curry is just a simple term for a different combination of spices. Every culture has a different style and type of curry. It's a broad stroke term for a combination of fucking spices that you use in traditionally spicy foods. Most of them aren't even fucking spicy. You look at fucking Vindaloo or Rogan Gush from India. One spicy, one not so much. Or you have Japanese style curry. You have Lord knows how many different types coming out of China.
Mm-hmm.
It's a broad brush term. But this person, I guarantee you, if you walked up to this person and asked them that question, be like, oh, well, that's Indian. Wrong.
About a month ago at my work, we had paella for about a week.
Oh, I fucking love paella.
Paella is fucking delicious. And this case, it had chicken, it had shrimp, it had the rice, it had the whole deal. If I asked this person where does paella come from, they'd probably say that's a Spanish dish. To which I'd say, no, it is not. It's a Valencian dish.
It's Southern European, technically.
Yeah,
It's a Iranian dish, man.
But Valencia is technically an autonomous region. It's kind of complicated when it comes to Spain. I'm pretty sure Cucurullo, if he was listening to this, would probably tear me a new asshole for screwing something up. But here's the thing. The whole lumping them all together, I have the book. That doesn't happen. Each of those cultures does get their own nation in the region known as Karatur. So he lied. He didn't even.
Of course he did. Either that or he never read the damn book.
I believe so.
Well, and that's such a great. That's also a really good analogy, because essentially the idea of paella, that's the term it's known by. But really all paella is the same way that we could describe chili. It's essentially a campfire hodgepodge potluck of whatever the hell it is you can hunt and find while you're, out there in the rough.
Yep.
That's what paella is. I believe traditionally it mostly uses rabbit.
So basically, it's Mediterranean chili, huh?
Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
There's also the matter of how you can have a bunch of different variants of poutine up in Canada.
Yeah. Oh, poutine.
Yeah, poutine. Which yes has been called Canadian salad.
That's the first I've ever heard of that one.
And god damn it, Mike had to bring up the curry reference. It's hot. It's spicy. It tastes great. It's Curry Man.
Oh boy. But yeah, just I guess getting a little bit more back on point. I guarantee you that this individual or any SJW minded person, they'll sit there and they'll preach about culture, racism, bigotry, etc., when they don't understand a goddamn thing about it. Like, again, ask this person if they know what curry is or what paella is or what chili is. They don't know. They don't care to know. They just want to virtue signal and preach. They don't have any appreciation for anything. They just want to use buzzwords because, again, they want to be the fucking cool kid.
And anyway, he goes, the next edition would shift the setting from Kara Tour, which was later integrated into the Forgotten Realms, to Rokugan with the Legend of the Five Rings role-playing game. And this is where I get pissed. Because keep in mind, I've been a fan of L5R since 2000.
Okay.
Do I need to get a beer before you continue? Because if it pisses you off, chances are it's really going to piss me off.
I'm not gonna say I'm gonna go into full-on rage mode, because you know how hard it is for me to lose my cool. But this is close. Anyway.
Oof.
James Wyatt wrote the revised Oriental Adventures for 3rd edition D&D, published by Wizards of the Coast in 2001. It was updated to 3.5 in Dragon Magazine number 318. Legend of the Five Rings, a franchise that extends to card games, is itself not immune to controversy. Yeah, I've been in the middle of that controversy because so many people think that it's trying to be a literal Japan when it never intended for that. They outright said, we are not trying to be historical Japan. We are trying to be our own thing, and based on the romanticized image of samurai. If you want a more realistic thing, go somewhere else. I'm pretty sure Bushido is still running games. Bushido, Chanbar, there's other places if you want to go for that route. Anyway, he goes on to say, Quentin Smith got enough comments on his review of the Legend of the Five Rings card game that he included an appendix that looked critically at chanting phrases like bonsai at conventions and some of the game's art. First off, shut your whore mouth. Shouting bonsai at a Kotai tournament is a long-standing tradition, and I will not have you disparage it. It is in the same realm that you can always spot a Scorpion player because they will always wear some kind of mask, even if it's just cutting holes in a paper plate. Because that is a tradition, because the Scorpions always wear masks. Because it's also the reason why they love the story of the Scorpion and the Frog.
I'm sure. I think Trump has been to one of those conventions.
But anyway, he quote, now I have no idea if this is right or wrong, but I do know chanting in Japanese at an event exclusively attended by white men and women made me feel a tiny bit weird. Well, that's your fucking problem.
Yeah. If you feel like that, and you're this guy's probably white himself, professional help he must seek.
There was I saw at a park downtown. I saw taiko drums being played to celebrate the spring. Fuck off.
Again,
usual-
this guy is just this. Whoever wrote this fucking article is just proving my point. Again, that whole idea of the, soft bigotry. If you're in a culture that is not your own and it makes you feel uncomfortable, it's not because you might want to do a little bit of introspection there. Like, it's not a good look. It just, why the fuck? Why? That's like me saying I feel uncomfortable eating Popeye's fried chicken. What the fuck?
I remember somebody asked, "Would you feel uncomfortable eating Popeyes?" And I'd say, I would only feel uncomfortable if somebody across from me was eating KFC as well, because then I'd feel sorry for them. I feel guilty that I'm eating something good and they're eating something shit. Yeah, you heard me. I said it. KFC is shit.
Yeah, sadly, that's the only chicken I have available out here in Aurora. That's what sucks. There's if there's a Popeyes anywhere nearby, shit, I don't know where it is. Probably like 20 miles east.
Popeyes, Churches, Bojangles, anywhere but KFC. KFC is garbage.
I love freaking Popeyes. And like I said, it's been a while since I've had Churches.
I've never been able to have Churches because they've never been anywhere that I've been. It's the same reason that I'd feel guilty if I was eating Five Guys and somebody across from me was eating a Big Mac.
Oh yeah.
Oh fucking damn! Yeah. I want Five Guys.
I love Five Guys.
I do remember the first time I brought a friend over there and they said they were going to get a large order of fries, and I said, "Don't do that."
Nope.
Like,
you don't understand how large they mean when they say a large order of fries.
And I said, if you really want to do this, then you have to eat the whole thing, and I'm going to sit there and watch. And it was like, and then he looks at the bag and goes like, Jesus, how many did you put in here? I told you.
Did you walk in and see the freaking bags of potatoes that they have sitting out for literal display?
Yeah. A regular order of fries is basically supersized over at McDonald's.
Well, I said you can if you chicken out on this, you have to drink the glass.
Oh.
Doku, I have explained to you the pane glass, have I not?
Actually, I do not think you have.
The pane glass is a shot glass that is full of salt, vinegar, water, soy sauce, Tabasco sauce, tiger sauce, Frank's Red Hot, and sriracha.
Oh, you are a monster. You are a monster.
Oh my god, you'll be breathing fire out of that one.
That is why it's called the pane glass. If I don't go with that, I go with the bacon soda.
Oh boy. You know what? It still doesn't sound as bad as the one mistake I made. There's a dude who was a cook at my local sports bar before they closed down. This guy's name, his name's Imtiaz. I believe he was Pakistani. But I got chicken wings one time, and I said, "Oh, I want them spicy." Imtiaz comes out and he goes, "Oh, you want spicy wings?" "Yeah, I want them spicy." He made me spicy wings. This was not Western. This was not
Pakistani
Western
spicy.
These I don't do milk at all. I have become more lactose intolerant as I've grown older. I got through about 2 of these fucking wings. Holy fucking shit. No, never again. Never again. It was bad. Like, my whole face turned red. It was horrible. They were good though. That's the bad part. They tasted really good, but it was impossible to get through like 3 of these things. It was ridiculous. I don't know what he did, but Jesus Christ, dude. Imtiaz, if you ever hear this, I love your cooking, but please never again.
Yeah, he did that to troll you, man.
Oh, he had a big fucking smile on his face, like, "Oh, you want spicy wings? All right, we're not gonna do Western spicy. We're doing straight up Middle Eastern, fucking burn your fucking tongue out of your mouth spicy.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's see. He goes on to say, my usual head check for this is, how would I feel if I brought a Japanese English friend to the event? And my answer is even more weird. To which I rebuke, that is your problem, not anyone else's. If you're that thin-skinned to worry about what other people think of you, then you clearly don't deserve to be in this hobby, because you're only in it for a paycheck.
Yeah, and I bet you 10 times out of 10 that Japanese English friend would be having a smile on his face, because because it seems like what we've been seeing from like Chinese and Japanese cultures is about this shit, especially with the whole dress fracas from a few weeks ago. They're saying, hey, our culture's getting out there. This is great.
Yeah, they fucking like it because people are actually paying attention. Again, it's a respect thing. It's not like with all of these individuals, they think they're doing the right thing by trying to be, sensitive or empathetic or whatever the fuck goes through their minds. When in reality, you're being very fucking disrespectful.
Yep. And he goes further on and say, personally, I found the game's cover art to be a little more questionable. I think it's fantastic to have a fantasy world that draws on Asian conventions instead of Western ones. But in the game that almost exclusively depicts Asian men and women, don't then put white people on the cover. It's such a lovely piece of art. I just wish he looked a little bit less like a cosplayer.
Oh, that last sentence.
Oh, what
that last sentence is completely hypocritical with these idiots, because I bet you this same idiot would be defending one of them goddamn magic thoughts in a heartbeat, freaking orbiting her because, oh, Jeremy attacked me again on his freaking YouTube page.
Well, this article's written by the same frickin' moron that feels uncomfortable if somebody yells bonsai. What the word?
Well,
what the shit?
It's different people. This particular quote is from Quentin Smith, but you know that these people are sucking each other's dicks. But
yeah, it's safe to say that the mentality sticks.
Yeah. Never mind that one of the clans is outright justified in having Caucasian-looking people, and that's the Unicorn Clan. Because in story, after the first day of Thunder, when Fu Lang fucked everybody's shit up, and that disaster was averted, what was Shinyo's clan, which was originally known as the Kirin clan before it became the Unicorns, they said, well, what other threats to our new empire could be out there? So she took her clan and left and wandered all around the world for about 400 years. And because of that, in the process of that, they ended up integrating other cultures into their traveling clan. Some from more Mongol-esque approaches, to the point where at one point the leader of the clan was known as the Khan. To the point where they have some Europeans, they have some Chinese, they have some Indians, they have people from a bunch of different cultures. And then when they came back, they were reintegrated, but everybody else looks at them with a bit of suspicion, mostly because their ways are very different from the other clans.
Sounds kind of like the United States.
Yeah, really.
Perhaps in response to this criticism, Fantasy Flight Games removed the bonsai chant as a bullet point from its website. I think I doubt it's one of those cases. I think it's more of nobody would. We're doing a new setup, and they outright said that they're doing a bit of a reboot, and I think their mindset was nobody's going to get it.
So
yeah,
they think,
probably more accurate.
They think, oh, it's just too silly.
Yeah. The page also it's in the Hall of Honor, which features previous tournament winners, which provides some context as to who is shouting the chant, as if that matters. Anyways, he goes.
Yeah.
By the time 5th edition of D&D was published, the game's approach to diverse peoples had changed. In fact, I'd say it got worse.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Hang on.
There really is no pleasing these people.
Oh my word! Like again, it goes back to what I've been saying about the whole Anita Sarkeesian thing. Gen Con tabletop gaming is turned into a complete fucking dumpster fire. I mean, Wizards is turning into shit. I don't know what's going on with Harebrained. I mean, yeah, they're coming up with some good content, but with the recent BattleTech games, they're going with the whole gender neutral thing. Have you seen Razorfist's review of BattleTech?
Oh no, and I don't want to subjugate myself to any more cancer.
Well, don't get me wrong, but the thing is, he thinks the game is pretty good, despite the fact that there's the gender neutral stink to some of the aspects of the game. But
when it came to some of that sort of stuff, I don't mean to sound like Needle Drop here, mostly because I'm nowhere near as good as Needle Drop, and I'm not bald enough as him. But there's only one reason that you would iterate things that blatantly, and it's you think your audience is stupid. Yeah. And while that may fit in with the current fan base of Wizards of the Coast, but I've had a strong feeling for several years that I have a higher opinion of the fan base of D&D or Magic or the like than they do.
Yeah.
Well, this is something we talked about on Thursday, but I'll go ahead and say it here again because I do feel like it's worth saying so it can reach as many ears as possible. Is when it comes to these SJWs, and specifically SJWs in pop culture, which nerd or geek culture, whatever you want to label it as, tends to be the focus of as of late. What they do is, we'll use Anita Sarkeesian as an example. They start a blog or a vlog or a YouTube channel. They get a following. They pander. They get a gigantic dog pile mob on Twitter. They get some notoriety, recognition. Then they end up at a con. And when that happens, their, reverse bias, their soft bigotry, it starts kind of driving people away because it makes people uncomfortable. You don't play Warhammer or video games or Magic the Gathering or take your pick.
They're just there to get a goddamn paycheck. They're just there for the shekels.
They are the political equivalent of Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
The fans go there to consume that product because it's enjoyable. It's an escape from reality. They want to go there to have fun. And these people are so overtly hostile. They hate everything that is not their clique or their mindset. They hate the wrong thing. And that drives people away. Well, businesses pay attention to two things. They pay attention to what fans say, and they pay attention to sales. Because at the end of the day, it's a business.
Money talks, bullshit walks.
That's right.
Exactly. So when these people actually manage to get into these kind of groups or these fandoms, these circles, they start driving people away, money starts falling off. I'm a prime example. I don't buy Marvel comics anymore. I was playing Magic the Gathering a year ago. I have not bought anything ever since.
And the thing that and this was the whole reason why I set up my channel. This is not 1978. There are plenty of alternatives. Normally somebody might stick with D&D and Magic back in the day because they were the big games in town. That's not the case anymore. I can go and easily if I wanted to, I could easily set up other games. In fact, I have done that multiple times. It was through me that several of my friends ended up getting into L5R or other games. It was things. I don't think any of them would even have tried and some of the games that ended up becoming mainstays for our group, like Exalted, if I didn't take the plunge. And this was back when I didn't have as reliable as resources, as opposed to nowadays where I have a lot more reliable resources. But anyway, Indigo Bach on Geek Girl Con, there's your first red flag, explains how, saying, diversity is strength.
Hi, Justin Trudeau.
People kind.
Okay. Oh God, I always feel sad for up there.
Oh, wait, real quick before I forget, Mildra. On the point I was making, when these individuals actually start getting some recognition and sales start falling off because they're driving people away, that's when things start to hit critical mass. Because when sales start dropping, the first thing companies do is they go start listening to the fan base. And this is definitely a problem that has been exponentially worse with the rise of social media, is you have a bunch of, Tumblrettes screaming on Twitter who don't buy the products, but the companies start listening. Then you get your diversity hires, and then they start gatekeeping.
Oh, yes.
That's
why Wizards is falling off huge.
That's when the coffin is, nailed and buried, is because now you have people within the industry who work for the companies producing the product that the fans already don't like to begin with. And they keep out all of the creativity. Then the quality starts going down. Then sales continue to go down. It's what you're seeing in Marvel Comics.
Yeah, and not only that, it also brings about campaigns like Jawbreakers Lost Souls.
Well, the other thing to take note when it comes to that is that all it takes is somebody saying we're not going to do that, and everybody who would have been buying the stuff that had turned to shit is buying that shit. And look at what happened recently with the waifu apocalypse on Steam. And all of a sudden, Dev and a bunch of others say, okay, if that's how it's going to go, we're releasing our stuff exclusively on, I think it was either Manga Gamer or Nataku. And there, you've got that storefront that was probably struggling for a while now has a massive coup.
Oh.
Anyway, Indigo goes, the strongest adventuring party is the most diverse adventuring party.
Nope.
Not true.
Nope.
You can have a bunch of different classes, and if the people there who don't know what they're doing, it ain't gonna mean shit. You're still gonna wipe.
Yep.
Try thinking about it in terms of classes. You have your healers, fighters, and magic users. Same goes for diversity. False dichotomy.
Bullshit.
First, you can have one of the I remember one challenge that I'd often see with randomizers with the original Final Fantasy back in the day was people using class setups that didn't seem optimal and seeing how far they could make it work. Like one person who
went white wizards.
Yeah. Somebody's been watching 8-Bit Theater.
Yep. Now I've seen that challenge done before. Some people just like, okay, let's see if we can beat the game with 4 white mages. Then apparently they'll just smoke undead, but let's just say they'll have to rest a lot often.
Yeah. And plus there's things like somebody going through the entirety of a Resident Evil game with nothing but the knife.
That's a good challenge, actually.
Those are always fun to watch. Knife only challenge.
Mm-hmm. No, I've done my fair share of weapon challenges with Devil May Cry and Ninja Gaiden, like going through the original Devil May Cry using nothing but the Force Edge.
Oh no, the best one to do, go through Ninja Gaiden, the one on Xbox, and use nothing but the wooden sword. Use nothing but the boken.
Yeah, I think I did that with Black, and then later on with Sigma. I think one of my favorite runs was using nothing but the flails, because the flails.
Oh, the Bagorian flails!
Yeah.
I love those things. That's my favorite weapon in the entire game. I fucking love it.
And when it came to 2, I liked and didn't like the scythe because it was fun to use, but it was also OP.
No, what was the one where you had the claws and like the bladed boots?
That was the Falcon Talons.
Yeah, those things were fun. They sucked, but they were fun.
Which is strange because I remember Yahtzee saying those were the only weapons you needed, and that's not true.
Oh no, they were horrible. All you have to do is run into what were the armored guys in that one? I forget the name. Yeah, you run into those guys and they just plant your fucking face in the ground like, nope.
Yeah. Anyway, she goes on to say different outlooks on life create more mobility and openness for different situations. Jeremy also explained that it was crucial that the art also reflected diversity, as did art director Kate Irwin. With this, they tried to make sure there was a 50-50 split of people who identify as male and people who identify as female in the illustrations.
Now, the question I want to ask is, how female are they drawing them? Are they drawing them as like androgynous, gender neutral?
Everybody is excessively covered up, even the barbarians.
Oh my god! Pray to this
is not Larry Elmore.
Oh my
no
god!
Fun allowed. No fun allowed.
The horror if they show an ankle.
It's not even Steve Argyle. And hell, even with the Fantasy Flight Games does a better job at getting this sort of thing right.
Oh my word!
Well, that's the thing. Girls, you can't look at any pecs, no abs, no biceps, no you can't look at any muscular male forms. Guys, you can't look at any thighs, no cleavage, none of that. No fun allowed.
No tits, no ass, not even a pretty face.
We're
going full fucking Protestant.
This is the reason why I put such high regard for the art style in Exalted and Anima, because they don't go through this shit, especially Anima. If you want an instance of what that is, let me show you the lead artist for Anima. I'm going to give you guys a link to his DA gallery, so you can see exactly what kind of style he does and did for both Anima and most recently with his project Luminous Echo, which I will admit I kickstarted.
Right. Oh, I see what you're talking about here. They've gone like full freaking Rubenesque here.
See, he is able to do quote unquote diversity, but he doesn't sell himself out in the process.
Yeah, I can see why. Look, yeah, they got like some chubby characters, but it's more like a Rubenesque style, not like oh my god, it looks like the Blob. Looks like fucking Trigglypuff or fucking Jabba the Hutt or some shit.
Anyway,
I have a feeling the author of this article would not like him.
Oh
no. First off, they wouldn't like Anima, especially because you have a game that draws heavily from console style RPGs. You already know I don't like the term JRPGs, and outright admits that Final Fantasy and Tales were their biggest inspirations. Even though the game was originally developed by a Spanish studio, and was later translated in English by Fantasy Flight Games.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And yes, for those who are curious, the Anima review is still in the works. It's just that this takes a long ass time because I bit off more than I could fucking chew. But Tremel goes on to point out these reflections are reflected in the art of the core rulebooks. First, there are a few illustrations: an East Asian warlock, a female samurai, an Arabian princess, an Arab warrior, and a Moor in battle, to name a few. Then there are mechanics. The monk persists as a class replete with a spiritual connection to another world via the key mechanic. Scimitars and blowguns are commonly available as weapons, and elephants are available for purchase as mounts for only 200 gold. Although all of these mechanics are presented with an earnest multiculturalist ethic of appreciation, This ethic often surreptitiously produces a problematic and fictitious exotic Oriental figure. At this point, given the embrace of multiculturalism by the franchise, it seems that the system is designed to embrace the construction of the Orientalist fictional worlds where the Orient and Occident mix, mingle, and wage war. So once again, even by capitulating, it's still not enough. Never mind the fact that
capitulate to these fuckers.
Never mind the fact that even though yes, they have a female samurai in the art. It's used in the section that denotes the background system, and two, she's expected to use the exact same setup as a standard fighter instead of having a more dedicated class. And I pointed this out when I reviewed 5th edition a few years ago. I got annoyed when they said that you could just make a samurai class by just reskinning the paladin.
Can't do that.
And as far as the idea of the monks doing ki, that's been a thing for so long that congratulating them here is utterly pointless. And 3, everything that they talk about, Fantasy Craft did it better. And yes, they also had a samurai type character to illustrate the Lancer class, which was a class that was based highly around mounted combat. And except the thing is, Fantasy Craft has enough diversity of mechanics that you could actually pull that off. But anyway, the main writer then says, a good first step to understand the nuances of a region by exploring more than one culture there. Sean S.M. Hill's The Journey 2 series is a great place to start, particularly Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Except here's the thing: anytime that somebody tries to examine one of these cultures, somebody like this idiot accuses them of appropriation.
Yeah. So the question is, what do you motherfuckers want?
What they want is a flagellant. They want somebody whipping themselves with a monk flail.
Honestly, I'm thoroughly convinced this article was written by someone who would think that the fact elephants can't survive on the continent of Antarctica is racist.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I would bet money that they would make that argument. They'd find a way. The mental gymnastics are fucking astonishing.
So it finishes by saying, D&D has come a long way, but it still has some work to do if it plans to reflect the diversity of its modern player base and their cultures, which is why it seems unlikely we'll get another Oriental Adventures title. Then says, Mike Tylen Tresca is a freelance game columnist, author, communicator, and participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for sites to earn advertising fees by advertising and linking to Amazon.com. You can follow him at Patreon.
We're not going to get we're not going to get another title like that, is because they completely fucked up the entire D&D.
The other reason why I find this massively hypocritical is because these are the same sort of people that lambasted. There was a module a few months ago called Tomb of Annihilation that had a very African fantasy sort of vibe, a sort of mix between mythic Africa and traditional fantasy tropes. And I thought that was a fascinating concept, and would have run it if it wasn't using 5th edition. But apparently the people at EN World and a few other places didn't see it that way. They saw it as appropriation. And I asked, do any of you know who Anansi is? Do any of you? No?
Crickets.
Of course they don't.
Mm-hmm. And
that's the funny thing about these people.
Author, I remember tweeting at him and asking him, okay, if you're going to be this kind of expert, I want you to name me the 4 pillars of wuxia fiction. If you claim to be an expert, this should be easy pickings. This is the fucking basics.
Crickets.
Of course they couldn't.
Mm-hmm. And for anybody who's curious, the 4 pillars are, and you should. Some of these names might be familiar to you. Journey to the West, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the Water Margin, also known as All Men Are Brothers. You may know it by its Japanese name, Suikoden, and Heaven's Sword and Dragon Saber.
And of course, they don't know any of those.
Yeah, I have read all four of them. Hell, I remember scouring everywhere I could to find copies of the graphic novel series, The Storm Riders, as well as its a spin-off novel, A Tale of No Name.
Well, you can't really give them that much credit. The only fucking book they've ever read probably was fucking Harry Potter.
Nah, it was probably fucking Twilight.
Yeah, even worse.
I suffered through that. I suffered through that book.
Yeah,
Ugh.
Twilight, Harry Potter, and the Hunger Games.
Oh, and also we got
what
are the other two? Divergent and
Divergence is just a poor man's version of what was a poor man's version of Running Man.
Yeah,
that's a very good analogy. I'm gonna actually start using that.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, here's the funny thing about these individuals. If we're talking about, Orient Adventures, if we don't get a new version, that's racist.
They'll bitch.
If we get a new version,
cultural appropriation.
If we get a new version, it's cultural appropriation. If we don't get a new version, then it's exclusion. Doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, you're not gonna please these fucks.
Yeah, no matter what you fucking do, everything is problematic.
That's the thing. They're like a cultural locust army.
Yeah, they're perpetually offended by everything because being offended is the only thing that makes them relevant. If they're not offended by something, they have nothing to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
And, now for me personally, even like I said, do we need I will bring it back to where I started. Do we need another Oriental Adventures?
Yeah,
yes,
we do.
But we don't need the Oriental Adventures name. However, as it turns out,
Jade Empire 2.0. Just saying.
That's why I'm looking into doing some stuff regarding that. But something that I feel is worth noting is, let's see if I can find it. Homebrew. Was it in campaign settings? Nope, not that one. Oh yeah, some fans made a supplement called Heroes of the Orient for D&D 5th edition. And this is why I said on Twitter, the fans have a better grasp of D&D 5th edition than the designers do.
That's not surprising.
Let's see. Created by Mark A. Doesn't say who it was. Talks about the. It brings up the Jade Empire, which in this case I think it's because they couldn't use Emerald Empire. Have a whole section on classes. Reintroduce the Kensai. Put in a Shogun class. Some new stuff for some of the spellcasting classes and the like. So yeah.
Well, look at how long it takes for someone to come out and scream racism.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at this point, with the whole thing with Anita, as I said before, and this goes back to my second point. There's actually some good that will come out of this. And buckle up, kids. This is the shilling point of my presentation here. So, what's going to happen as a result of that is there's going to be a lot of people that's going to go the route of Jawbreakers and even go the route of Ethan Van Sciver. You know what I mean?
Cyberfrog.
Yes, sir. And this is why I say this is the shilling point part of my presentation. I have decided to, inspired by those two projects, to to give it another shot with Ronin one more time?
You know, I've been working on a few books, and at this point, shit, my bad. At this point, I'm convinced I would rather just self-publish than try to go through the normal.
It would be
publishing.
funny as hell if it turns out that Splato ends up becoming the new Image, where he has a bunch of people just with their own studio.
Yeah, because
honestly, I would take at least one of the I think it's 14 stories and novellas at this point. I would take at least one of them and take it to him and be like, hey, here's 10K. Get me an artist. Let's do a graphic novel. It'll be
really. Yeah. Now again, so back on the point here, and because of that, you're going to see more independence, people going independent. And as far as Ronin's concerned, I'm definitely going to that Indiegogo route, but it's going to take months to plan because I have to get the tiers down and the cost. I'm actually looking at book publishing, printing costs right now.
I can safely say that when it comes to that sort of thing, first off, I could make my own non-cucked version of D&D 5th edition, and Wizards wouldn't be able to do shit to me.
What, they don't have the copyrights or something?
No, because of how the open gaming license is set up. As long as I put the terms of that in the back of the book, I'm fine.
They can't do shit to you legally.
They can't. Because that is the Pandora's box they opened back in 2000 when they started up the open gaming license. Oops. And its side project, the Game Systems license. So if I go that route, I'm perfectly fine. I am perfectly fine. Plus, there are other companies that have open licenses that I could go to instead that are very much not as cut. One of them is Pinnacle, who's the group that handles Savage Worlds. Well, now whether or not I'd go with somebody like Paizo, probably not. I have a love-hate relationship with Paizo, even before they started swallowing the Kool-Aid.
Oh God!
But
more like swallow the poison.
Yeah, and given the fact that we have now gone about 3.5 hours live, I think that'd be a good. I think that's a good spot to wrap it up for this week. So, for those few who were watching, thank you for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun. I hope to continue to make this a weekly series as best as I can, and hopefully bring in more people that can stay, because I want to have total absolute chaos, even just as much, if not more chaos than what happens on Thursday.
Oh,
so I'll get Ralph in here. It'll be fun.
If it wasn't on Sundays, I probably would be able to get Ralph in here. But Sundays is the wife time, so that ain't happening.
Yeah, or better yet, get Jeremy in here. He'll get the quartering in here. He'll probably go on and on about some shit.
Oh
God! If we could get quartering in here.
Jeremy knows who I am, and if he did know who I am, I would be fucking shocked.
Oh my God!
If we could get quartering in, that would be that would be fun.
Oh yes.
Let's get quartering and Mr. Mediker in here.
Mediker's a bit of a tall order, but quartering, I'm sure he'll want to jump in.
Yeah,
he might. Never know. Jeremy seems to be a fairly chill dude, whether you love him or hate him.
I know.
But
he seems to be fairly open.
But here's the thing. I know there's been a lot of politics thing, but the goal. But I need to establish something. The goal of Monastery Live going forward is a weekly show where you kick off your shoes, crack one open, and have some fun. If you want the political arguments or the shit flinging, go to the Thinkery or
Go to Sargon or freaking Ralph.
Yeah, go to the Ralph Report.
And if you want the shit, if you want 3 or 4 hours of nothing but shit flinging, then go to the Kumite.
Yeah.
No disrespect to those guys. Tonka, Failure, I love you guys. I love your work, but that ain't my bag.
Yeah.
And besides, we need to make this into a proper ethno snake.
Yeah. A genre state.
And yes, tabletop is gonna be a major focus because that's what I do. But
yeah, and it's a good thing it's a focus because, as I said before, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, the fucking industry is a shit show right now.
Which is why it's all the more important to highlight the people who aren't shit.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's only going to get worse from here if Comicsgate is any model to go by. Yeah,
and also I want to tell you about the project again. Sorry to show this again, but
I invited you 2 years ago. I invited you on my channel for an interview solely to shell the thing. Don't worry.
I know, because I know everyone's saying, "Hey, don't shill your shit! Don't shill your shit!" I was like,
"No,
you know what? I'm gonna shill my shit because, like I said, I think Ronin is gonna kick so much fucking ass once it get the fucking wheels going. I am working on getting a new artist involved, and it might be, and this artist might be someone you're familiar with, but I'm not gonna announce it until everything on that end is concrete because I still haven't paid the first half of the commission just yet. So and besides, I want to get it like a face-to-face meeting with this artist before I even announce a goddamn thing. You know, I want to make sure both parties are ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can dig that.
Yeah, but like I said, I am trying to get something going with that one and try to get a good alternative. But let's just say, if for those of you who haven't heard of Ronin, think a new version of cyberpunk with a lot of inspiration from 80s nostalgia, but and not just look at the 80s at a nostalgic lens. You're getting the full experience. You're talking about the high crime rates of that time, the out of control fashions, and even the cars will take sort of a retro futuristic look. So it also will have like political intrigue, criminal intrigue, with a lot of it's this. It's a clash between the 80s versus modern culture. If you want to think about that in that term.
It sounds good. And as always, hopefully in 7 days we'll be back here with some more shit to talk. And I will hopefully be back in the saddle with Legend of the Five Rings: The Second City on Wednesday on RVT's channel at 7 p.m. Central Time. Actually, no, it's not 7. It's 8. My bad. It's the time zone thing's kind of screwing me up. And of course on Thursday, myself and hopefully Doku will be at the Stream of Corruption. I'll be making my grand return after spending so long not being able to show because of the whole moving situation. And and on Friday, whether or not we end up doing D&D, that's it. That ends up being a literal dice roll. And if not, I'll probably be invading Hyper RPG's Twitch and talking shit to everybody there who loves 5th edition.
Oh my god!
Including the fact that if things end up going the way they end up going, I might end up having the distinct honor of saying I cussed out a Power Ranger. Because Peter Sidarso is a fan of 5th edition. I'm not, and I've exchanged a few words. Plus, there's the fact that I made fun of the fact that he has bad luck with dice. He is effectively Mike. And
Yeah, there's always one. There's always that one.
yeah, there's always that one. On the Friday streams, it ends up being Ramen, who is an absolute joy to hear her go off the handle. I love that. I love that ends up happening, and I have no idea what the other end of that conversation is.
Oh my god!
I don't know if I want to know.
Yeah, and by the way, it's a good thing you brought back the podcast, because we are 2 months, T-minus 2 months from the greatest dumpster fire in the industry, Gen Con.
Oh boy,
when you said we are T-minus 2 months from the greatest dumpster fire, I said, wait, we've already been past WrestleMania.
No, that's another dumpster fire.
Because there's so many at this point. How do you track?
Because of the whole freaking Anita thing, it's become a bigger dumpster fire than Roman Reigns main eventing WrestleMania for like the fourth fucking time.
Well, the thing is, with announcing Anita Sarkeesian as a guest, Gen Con has managed to,
mind you,
yeah, an honored guest, Anita Sarkeesian.
It means rolling out the red carpet, probably getting someone to like fan her while she's doing her freaking panel.
Although it's funny you mentioned T-minus, because on Saturday there is one bit of good shit coming. Even if I'm gonna have to stay up ridiculously late to get it.
What's this?
Live from Osaka-jo Hall, Dominion.
Oh.
Because we are getting Okada Omega 4.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm the only one.
Yeah, I'm getting Okada Omega 4. Crickets.
Really don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I watch a lot. In my defense, I watch a lot of Japanese wrestling.
Oh, I see.
Because there you can get a lot. If you want something that's old school without trying to be a nostalgia trip, that's how you get it, because they don't run weekly TV. It's all pay-per-views, and because of how they do it in Japan, there is storylines are kept very simple. There's no excessively long promos. It is all about the work.
Yeah, so they keep it there. Yeah, I've seen it with the whole Jericho. I've seen a bit of it with like the great Jericho versus Kenny Omega feud. You didn't get a lot like a week in and week out shows, but they always stuck to like couple off shows and like press conferences. That's the way. That minimalist approach is the way it should be. And plus, they can go hog wild with the fucking promos, because if you've seen how Jericho came in and whooped the crap out of Kenny Omega and basically say, your career ends at the Tokyo Dome. And that's the most intensity I've seen in Jericho even since his early WWE days.
Yep. But we're getting off on that is something to be talked about in the future.
Yeah.
Because during that infamous Royal Rumble, I pretty much quit the WWE Network, bought NJPW World the same night, and have never looked back since. But
which infamous Royal Rumble?
The first time Reigns won it.
Oh God! Oh yeah, the one when the Rock came up and said, "Come on, like this guy, please," pointing at this guy and shit, raising his fucking hand.
But those are topics for another day. Yeah. And yes, that I came into this with very little structure, because fuck it, we'll do it live. But that is stuff to be coming. The anime review is coming, and I will still continue to do the Pathfinding series up until August, when the playtest version comes out.
All right.
I do have a hope. The L5R thing on Wednesdays is running into a bit of trouble, but hopefully I'll be able to resolve it by Wednesday. But until then, on behalf of Flatmeister, who is not here, on behalf of Aaron Alexander, aka the Nameless One, and on behalf of the Living Snack of comic books, Doku HL, I am Mildra, your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty.